This is CRP speaking to you live, otherwise known as Gonzalo Lira. And today I'm going to be talking about the different moralities of men and women based on a test that is very interesting. I did it a while back and I shared it on my Telegram. And I've been thinking about this whole issue of morality quite a bit because I'm working on a book called Ethics. I'm going to get into that. But before I do, uh, just a quick reminder. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, shit. Hang on. Sorry about this. Oh, here we are. Where is Tiffany Dover? Where is Tiffany Dover? I think I'm probably the only person on the internet who cares about Tiffany Dover. Mhm. Tiffany Dover, for those of you who don't know, well, look it up and look at the video of this poor woman and how she was memory holed. I think that the fate of Tiffany Dover and the fact that she's just been swallowed up by bullshit and propaganda and all the rest of it is just a tragedy. This was just an innocent, decent person who wasn't trying to hurt anybody and just wanted to do the best as she had been convinced she could do. And she became a victim, and she's likely gone. And I always think about her. The memory of her haunts me, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't know how that sounds, but it's very true. It's just a horrible fate that has befallen her. And so I just want to remind everybody to ask, where is Tiffany Dover? Mhm. Because she doesn't deserve the fate that she got. Huh? And if for those of you who are new here and don't know who Tiffany Dover is, please go check her out on YouTube, on Google rather, and YouTube too. You'll see a video of her collapsing, and those are the last certified images of her, because everything that came after that, which happened in December of 2019, no 2020, yeah, December 2020 was the last time anybody saw her alive, indisputably alive, and she's gone. And I think that we should remember her. Where is Tiffany Dover? If you guys can hear me properly and the audio is good and the video is good, so why don't you write in the chat, where is Tiffany Dover? I'd appreciate it. I'll wait for the chat to catch up. Yeah, Trolley Sparks says here, we don't deserve the fate libs have planned for us. Yeah, you guys have been following the whole Justin Castro thing, right? And how he has degenerated into tyranny. They're not only arresting the truckers in Ottawa, but they're going after their money, their cryptocurrency. They're even going after family members' money. There are people who are saying how they had nothing to do with the protest, but they were family members of the truckers, and their accounts have been frozen. Yeah, it's open season on the people's money, and the banks are able to unilaterally decide if somebody was a bad boy and freeze their accounts, and they will be immune from civil liability. So a bank can just freeze your money, and there's no way for you to get it back, and there's no way for you to sue them. That's what's happening in Canada. I told you guys, leave the West while you still can. I told you that back in October. And what's happened? Huh? Was I right or was I right? Yeah, you tell me. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happened. It's just a tragedy. And well, there's nothing to be done. Yeah. This is, and Yannick says here, the bank account freeze is a prelude to Cyprus 2012 2.0. That's absolutely right. I think so. For those of you who don't know, in Cyprus in 2012, the Cypriot banks froze people's money and basically stole their money so that the banks wouldn't go belly up. It was more sophisticated than that, but for purposes of this conversation, that's good enough. That shit is going down, man. The whole thing, it's becoming tyrannical as fuck. And this whole bullshit that it's a democracy, fuck that. It's not democracy. You are slaves. You guys in the West are slaves. I'm here in Ukraine, and by the way, I'm like I always tell you guys, I'm 25 miles away from the border with Russia. It's the border with Russia is right in that direction from where I am now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's direction roughly. And 25 miles away. And, still no invasion, man. Still no invasion. All this talk that was going to be last Wednesday, I was waiting. Last Wednesday at 1 a.m. in the morning, I was waiting in the terrace of my building, with binoculars, infrared binoculars, by the way. And I had my laser arrays and radar and shit to see the tanks when they were coming. I was up all night, motherfucker. And, no tanks, no special forces. Although the rumor is that they did send special forces into Ukraine, into Kharkov. But the problem is that they're so stealthy that nobody can see them. They're like invisible. In fact, right now, apparently, we've been completely conquered by Russia, but it was so stealthy that nobody can see it. Ah! So anyway, enough of my bullshit. Let's get cracking with today's topic, which I think is very interesting, because I think that we all fundamentally agree that, let me ask chat here. Hit me with a +333 if you agree that men and women have different moral sensibilities. They have different senses as to what is right and what is wrong. Hit me with a +333 if you agree. If you disagree, hit me with a 0 if you disagree. From my experience, women and men have radically different views on what is right and what is wrong. And more to the point, it's not all men, it's not all women, but enough of them. Okay. And well, some tests have been done, and this kind of testing is not very mainstream, because the mainstream is hell bent for leather on saying that men and women are the same. Look at this bullshit where you have these trans athletes competing against women in swimming, and the men just blow them away. And how is that fair? It's ridiculous. But it's to preserve this fiction that men and women are the same, that they're interchangeable. They're not. Men and women have radically different bodies, radically different minds, radically different priorities. Okay. And to claim otherwise is ridiculous. And so, okay, so let's get cracking with this presentation. You guys don't really need to see me. So let me just go to the full screen here. The different moralities of men and women. By the way, I hope, again, hit me with a uh, uh, tell me your results of the test that I floated on Patreon. I'm very interested. Tell me how you did on the tests. Were you like extremely masculine, extremely feminine? Do this in your comments. Say M if you're a man or F if you're a female, and tell me, M, what you are, and then the result. M 100% masculine or M 100% feminine, or any combination thereof. And if you're a woman's, put F and then your result, 100% feminine or F 100% masculine, whatever the case may be. I'm very interested, um, because it serves no purpose if you just say, "Oh, I'm 100% masculine." If your name is like, for instance, Chris. I mean, I know Chris. Oh, I'm looking at him in the chat. I know he's a guy, but Chris could also be a woman's name. So yeah, put who you are in your sex, or who you identify as. What sex do you identify as? No, I'm serious. Put the sex that your sex, casually masculine. I prefer, rather than casually masculine, put your percentage, the percentage numbers. That would be more precise. Um, yeah. Okay. And Yuri Piadyak, 100% feminine, and that actually, I think the test was wrong to characterize it as 100% feminine and 100% masculine, and I'm going to get into why in just a moment, because I don't think it actually has much to do with femininity and masculinity. It has to do with something else, but I'll get to it, as I get to it. Okay. I identify as 100% peanut butter. Chai Town Biker. Yeah, I know most of us consider you peanut butter as well. So, no problems there, man. Okay, let me get cracking. Okay, so as some of you may know, I've been doing a nonfiction work in progress because, as a few of you might know, I'm having huge difficulties with one of my former publishers, who's alleging that I still owe them a fiction book. And I wanted to publish a fiction book called Wilshire Boulevard a while back, and I'm sort of like stuck in this legal limbo because, see, the publisher doesn't give a shit about the book, but they care about the fact that now I have a big online presence. And because of that, they figure that the book would do very well. And so they want a piece of it. And so that's why I'm in this legal situation. And so I've actually written a bunch of fiction apart from Wilshire Boulevard, but I can't publish any of it because of this legal problem with my former publisher. But it doesn't prevent me from publishing nonfiction. And so because of it, I've been writing nonfiction. I've been writing philosophy. And some of you may know um, I studied philosophy at Dartmouth. I studied philosophy and history. I got a double major. And in philosophy, I was an okay student, mediocre, you know. But it's only now in my comfortable middle age that I'm really thinking about philosophy a lot more. And what's interesting is that I no longer find fiction or movies or made up narratives. I don't find them interesting anymore. I am very much about nonfiction and about philosophy now. It's sort of like just temperamentally, my mood, my outlook, my interests have radically changed. Before I used to like nonfiction but I loved fiction. I wrote fiction for a living, but now it's all about nonfiction and philosophy and morality. And I'm going to sound really arrogant, but you guys know that I'm an arrogant asshole anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I think I cracked it. I think I figured it out. I'm very pleased with this ethics book that I'm writing. I think I cracked the code of what ethics and good and evil are all about. And the thesis is very, very simple. First of all, the book Ethics, which is currently in progress, is about how moral systems are all about trying to regulate individual ambition and collective security. Because the basic thesis is as follows. You see, human beings need collective security. And don't give me this bullshit that people don't need collective security, that they can make it on their own. No, that's stupid. All human beings need collective security because at different points in our lives, we are completely helpless and vulnerable. And the obvious example is in infancy. When a woman gives birth to a baby, to an infant child, that child is helpless. It cannot feed itself. It cannot walk. It cannot do anything. It is, for all intents and purposes, born embryonic. And it's born embryonic because of human beings' large brain. And so a woman has to take care of that child, has to suckle that child. And it is a physical reality that a woman on her own cannot acquire enough calories to feed herself and her infant child. She simply cannot. She needs at least one other individual who will gather the calories, the resources necessary to feed the woman so that she can feed the infant child, and also for this third person to feed himself. See? I mean, this person who helps the woman has to be able to provide enough resources to feed himself, the woman, and the child. And that's the basis of pair bonding. Now, if you look at other species, for instance, bears, a bear cub, as soon as it's born, practically can walk around and feed itself from the bear mother's tit, but walk around and follow the mother. So the mother doesn't really need a man, but a woman does, because she can't carry the infant child who cannot walk, cannot carry him, and at the same time hunt for food. It's just not possible. A bear can, a human female cannot. And so that's the start of collective security. The pair bond between a man and a woman, the man providing the resources so that the man, the woman, and their child survives. And that's, of course, the beginning of the pact between a man and a woman. The woman provides sexual fidelity so that the man is sure that all of her children are his children. And he, in turn, provides the resources for the woman's survival and, of course, their child's survival. That's the point of it. That's how pair bonding works. Okay. And I insist, it really makes me incredibly impatient when people say, oh, I don't need anybody. I can survive on my own. The example I have heard, which is the best example I've ever heard, is that, see, that's the attitude of the house cat that is all independent and shit, while the owners provide the shelter and the food for the fucking house cat. Mm? And that's, as far as I'm concerned, what libertarians are. They think that they're all independent and they don't need anybody, but they don't realize that they're living under the umbrella of collective security. The society that we live in today, the industrial collective that we live in today, provides food, and shelter, and most important of all, collective security by way of police, rules, socialization of the other members, such that we can survive and we're not worried about getting killed every second of the day or where our next meal is going to come from. See, this is collective security, and all of us need it. Okay, and so the problem, of course, becomes collective security has certain needs. To get it, people have to sacrifice. All the members of the collective have to sacrifice a little bit so that the collective as a whole can survive. And yet, at the same time, the individual has certain selfish goals and desires that may or may not go against the collective. And so the interplay between these two ambitions, between the desire for collective security and this desire for individual freedom to achieve his goals by the individual, that's the point where morality begins. Morality, what is good, what is evil, is the regulation of this interplay. See, when the individual does those things that go against the collective security, but to his benefit, other people are against it. Other people in the collective are against it. And they, by different means, whatever those means may be, they pressure the individual to not do that. And by the same token, the collective, in its desire for collective security, might impose certain limitations on the individuals. And the individuals might acquiesce to those limitations up to the point where those limitations truly hinder the individual. And that's when the individuals start to revolt against it. And sort of like what's happening in Canada right now. It's very interesting. Okay. The mechanisms of collective security, i.e., the Canadian state, are infringing on the individual liberties. And that's why you have this clash. And it's very interesting, but that's besides the point of this conversation. I want to just put out the basic thesis so that you understand what morality, insofar as my theory is concerned, is all about. I'm not giving the best précis of it, but it's good enough for now. I'm working up a detailed version of it, and I'm on Patreon. I'm going to circulate work in progress because I'm interested in what you guys have to say. It'll be a PDF, and I'll float it out there in a few weeks. But I'm very interested in what you guys have to say. And by the way, I've been using you guys, if you don't mind my saying, I've been using you guys to develop a lot of my ideas. Okay, and this presentation is no different. So anyway, to continue. Um, Men and women are most obviously different physically, and I mean, a child can see it. Okay, it's very obvious that men and women are different physically, so it follows that men and women are going to be different mentally. Of course, they are. Okay, and to think otherwise is just ridiculous. They are going to be different mentally. It doesn't mean that one is going to be less than another. It means that they're going to be different. Hmm? Now, according to, hang on a second, I'm about to sneeze. Hang on. Oh man, it's sort of like, I want to sneeze and I'm not sneezing. You know that horrible feeling? Hang on, sorry about this. I really hate this, but I'm sorry. Oh, please excuse me. I'm so sorry about that. It's not rude on my part, but I can't help it. And so I'm so sorry. Anyway, as I was saying, according to the big five psychological traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, otherwise known by the acronym OCEAN. And by the way, I suggest you memorize it. It's a very useful heuristic to remember these five psychological traits, right? Men and women, on average, consistently score different. Okay. Women tend to be more conscientious, more agreeable, less extroverted, more neurotic. Okay. And it's very interesting also. Men tend to be more open, less conscientious, more extroverted, less agreeable, less neurotic. And it's very interesting because across all cultures, across all races, this tends to be the case. There's also the quiet and disturbing fact that between races, there tends to be differences. And differences enough that they cannot be explained by mere culture. They are actually racially based, but people don't want to talk about it. And frankly, for this conversation, it's not really relevant. So I'm just going to mention it, but not really dwell on it because it doesn't really matter for so far as this conversation is concerned. Now, shouldn't it follow that if men and women have different psychological traits, that men and women will have different moral views and conclusions? That men and women will have different beliefs as to what is right and what is wrong? Of course. And this is obvious, and it should not need defending. Because if men and women have different psychological traits on average, and this has been conclusively proven, this is not me going out on a limb and saying something extraordinary. No, this is a truism as the sky is blue and grass is green. Then, of course, men and women are going to have different beliefs as to what is right and what is wrong. Now, Valerio Capraro has done a lot of work on the issue of gender morality, which is really interesting and not given much attention for obvious reasons. Because again, the notion that men and women have different moral views goes against the notion that men and women are the same. Of course, I mean, if you are proposing that men and women are the same, then you can't have them having different moral views. They have to have the same moral views now, don't they? I mean, you're arguing that they're physically the same, which is obviously not true, but you're arguing that, right? So you can't go out on the secondary limb and say that they have different moralities. No, you have to say that they have the same moralities. But the truth is, they have different moralities, and the test based on Capraro's work, which I circulated on Patreon. Go to Patreon, and you'll be able to see it. It's one of the last posts that I posted before this broadcast, and I posted that test so that people would, take it and see what results they got. Okay, it's very interesting. And here is an example of the test. I'm going to read the questions for you. I'm going to read all of the questions first, and then I'm going to analyze the questions. Okay, there are 9 questions, and all the questions are A, B. That's as simple as that. It can't be any simpler. You have to pick between one of 2 options for these 9 questions. And the options are extremely simple. The first one, you get $11, Harry gets $13, Michael gets $15. You get 11, Harry gets 13, Michael gets 15. Or you get 10, Harry gets 10, and Michael gets 10. Those are the 2 options in question number 1. The first one, you get 11, Harry gets 13, Michael gets 15. Second option, you get 10, Harry gets 10, Michael gets 10. I'm repeating it so that you understand the structure of all the questions that are going to come subsequent to that. The subsequent questions, I'm not going to repeat that often. I'm just going to go through them so that there's a record on the audio. Okay. Question number 2. You get $14, Carrie gets $14, Hannah gets $14, or you get $16, Carrie gets $24, and Hannah gets $14. Question number 3. You get $13, Bob gets $13, Pete gets $13, or you get $15. Bob gets $23, Pete gets $13. Question number 4. You get 5, Tom gets 5, Jack gets 5. Option 2. You get 5, Tom gets 10, Jack gets 5. Question number 5. First option. You get 11, a first stranger gets 14, and the second stranger gets 16. Second option. You get 9, the first stranger gets 9, and the second stranger gets 9. Question 6. You get 14, Lisa gets 16, and gets 18. Option 2. You get 12, Lisa gets 12, and gets 12. Question number 7, first option. You get 12, the first stranger gets 12, and the second stranger gets 12. Second option. You get 12, the first stranger gets 22, and the second stranger gets 12. Question 8, first option. You get 13, Linda gets 23, Kelly gets 13. Option 2. You get 13, Linda gets 13, Kelly gets 13. Question number 9. You get 12, the first stranger gets 12, and the second stranger gets 12. Option 2, you get 14, the first stranger gets 22, and the second stranger gets 12. Okay, so these are all the questions. Okay, now the results are skewed by sex. I took the test and I got 100% masculine morality. But what does that mean? It means that the individual is the one, I mean, the one who gets 100% masculine morality is the one who picks that the individual gets more from one of the two choices, or he gets the same in both choices, but the aggregate of what everyone gets is more. Okay. Now, why is it called the masculine morality? Well, because a large proportion of men got this result and very few women. That's why it's called the masculine morality. Okay. Which I actually don't think is a smart way to call it. And I'll explain why. Because, see, if you are a man and you get a feminine morality, which I'll go into in just a moment, right? You automatically feel that, well, I guess I'm more feminine, but that's not what's going on. It's more that you are prioritizing the collective. And I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Okay. But I just want to put that parentheses there before I move on. Now, the 100% feminine morality, that's the result where the individual always gets the same amount as the other two. Because if you noticed in those 9 questions, one of the two options, in every one of the two options, there was an option where the 3 individuals got the exact same amount. And there were conditions where the 3 individuals got the exact same amount, but it was less than the other option, i.e., to go back quickly, there's an option here whereby question 5 of 9, right in the middle of your screen, it says you get 11, the first stranger gets 14, and the second stranger gets 16, or you get 9, the first stranger gets 9, and the second stranger gets 9. The women, the people who got 100% feminine morality were the ones who would pick option B. You get 9, first stranger gets 9, second stranger gets 9. That is the same amount. Even though the other option, you get 11, and the first stranger gets 14, and the second stranger gets 16, that would have been a better thing for you to get more income, right? I mean, 11 is more than 9, of course. But feminine morality would be that no, it's better to everybody has the same amount. Okay. And that's extremely interesting. Okay. And by the way, I floated this test by a number of men and women, and it was very interesting. The women whom I considered very feminine tended to score 100% feminine morality, whereas the women who were more aggressive tended to be split 50-50 or more towards the masculine morality. But none of them were 100% masculine morality. Whereas a lot of the more aggressive men that I met scored 100% masculine morality every single time. It was very interesting. So anyway, now a large, the same as the 100% masculine morality, a large proportion of women got this result of being 100% feminine morality. Okay, and very few men, relatively speaking. Okay, now here are some hidden implications of the test. My observation. The first was that all questions lead the respondent to think of the other people as fellow members of his/her collective. Even the questions that say a stranger. Okay. Now, it didn't seem, because there are some of the questions, like 2 or 3 of the questions, were a stranger gets this and that, and the first stranger and second stranger. But it wasn't differentiated enough. Okay. It was just a stranger and not somebody who's of a radically different moral, a radically different collective. And there's something else too. See, at this time, um, we have an industrial collective that is, for all intents and purposes, a global morality. And therefore, see, in previous epochs, people in one collective would view another collective as completely alien, as if they were like another species, okay, not even human beings. And they'd kill them with alacrity, like what happened, for instance, in Mexico among the Aztecs. The Aztecs slaughtered their prisoners of war by the hundreds of thousands. and in ritual sacrifices. I mean, it was horrifying, right? They'd have these racks, and I'm not making this shit up. This is real. They found it. They would have these racks where they'd, put all the skulls of all their sacrificial victims. Okay. I mean, these racks, and the archaeologists have estimated that these racks would hold like 100,000 skulls. I mean, think of the number of people. But of course, the Aztecs viewed the others that they sacrificed not as human beings, and certainly not members of their own collective of Aztecs, because the Aztecs among themselves, they didn't sacrifice one another, or they did, but under certain very specific ritualized circumstances. And the person who being sacrificed would look forward to the sacrifice because they thought that they were helping their community. It's a different kind of thing. And so, in terms of like sacrificing their enemies, they didn't view their enemies as fellow human beings like we do. We in the West, who are the recipients, the inheritors of the Christian tradition, we believe that another person is a human being just like us, and that they have an immortal soul. We might not even believe in God or Jesus or Christianity, but we still believe that the other person is a human being no different from us. And this is inherited from Christianity. Without Christianity, we would not have this notion that another person of another race or another tribe is a non-human, but we do. Okay. And this is, I realize, one of the faults with this test, because my notion is that if we truly saw the other as an outsider in my theory, being an individual who is clearly not a part of our collective under any circumstances, and therefore not eligible for consideration as a fellow member of our collective, then we'd have different results. I mean, like, to put it a different way, if we were able to give this test to members of the Aztec Empire back in the 15th century before the Spanish arrived, they would have different results, because the question of, Billy and Kelly, for instance, would have one result, that is, people who are implicitly of our collective, our Aztec collective in this case, right? And the stranger. For the Aztecs, a stranger would be like an animal. It wouldn't be even a human being. And you wouldn't have any problem with sacrificing them, let alone getting more money than them or something like that. You see what I'm saying? It would be a different result. It's very important to understand this. Okay. It might sound obscure at first, but it'll become more important later. But the point, see, this is one of the hidden implications, was that the questions lead the respondent to think of the other people as fellow members of his or her collective. Okay. Thus, men and women who respond automatically place themselves as both individuals who are members of the same collective as the others in the question. That's a mouthful, so let me explain what I mean. I mean that when you see a question where it's talking about you and Timmy and Johnny, it automatically assumes that it implies to you, and you automatically think that Timmy and Johnny are part of your collective. And by my theory, that the theory I'm developing, we as individuals treat people of our own collective very differently. And we give them more value than an outsider. An outsider has no value, because the outsider is not helping us with collective security now, is he? But a member of our collective is helping provide that collective security that we need to survive. And therefore, we are going to treat him and view him differently. Okay? And that's the point I'm trying to make clear. It's very important that you understand this notion that when you feel a part of a collective, you are implicitly thinking that the other person is helping you acquire collective security, helping in providing you with collective security. And therefore, you're going to treat him better. And the whole notion of what is good and what is evil depends on that relationship between you as the individual and the collective of which you are embedded in, that provides you with collective security. An outsider, a true outsider in the, a member of the Aztec Empire, and this other, Indian person is just like cattle to me, and so I'm going to sacrifice him to the sun god or whatever the fuck, right? That's a different relationship. And so my thinking is that this test would have radically different outcomes for women if it could be couched in a way that the women respondents viewed the other people as truly outsiders, not part of their collective, not helping provide them with collective security. I think that the women would be far more ruthless towards those and would have quote unquote more masculine responses. See, I mean that's my criticism of this test. Before I get into the more implications of this thing, okay? Um, Yeah. So let's go on to this masculine morality stuff, which again, I think it was a misnomer. I think the test kind of like fucked it up in that regard. Although I understand what it was trying to achieve, it was trying to show that men tend to have a certain kind of moral outlook that is different from what females tend to have. And so that's why they called it the masculine morality and the feminine morality. Okay. But in the masculine morality, the individual does not care if he gets less than another, so long as he gets the most he can get. And that's a truism. I took the test multiple times and gamed it in different directions. The first time I did it, I didn't really know where the test was going. I took it blind in that regard, and I got 100% masculine, right? Uh, but then, the second time I understood what the questions were about, and I gamed it in the other direction. And the way I gamed it was very simple. I simply responded the exact opposite of what I would instinctively respond, and I got 100% feminine. And I realized that, yeah, the masculine morality, the individual doesn't care if somebody else gets more than him. All he cares about is getting as much as he can. And the second thing he cares about is that if he's getting the same as the others, then let's hope that the entire collective gets more. And I treated the other participants. I didn't carefully read whether it was a stranger or an actual person. I just automatically assumed that all the others were part of my collective. I implicitly thought of this, and all I cared about was that everybody got the exact. Everybody got more. That the aggregate of the three people, myself and the two other hypotheticals, Johnny and Timmy, right? I hope that they got as much as possible, so long as I got as much as I could get. See? In other words, I was not willing to get less so that others got more or that the collective got more. And I was not willing to take less if everybody got the same. I always wanted more for myself. But once that condition had been satisfied, I wanted more for the collective. And that tends to be what masculine morality is all about. The most for the individual. And once that has been satisfied, that condition has been satisfied, the most for the collective. Whereas feminine morality, okay, and by the way, I set this up as will not take less to fit in. This is important because it's the flip side of what women will do. Women will take less in order to fit in. The individual woman gets the same, never less than the others, even if the collective gets less overall, because that's the feminine response. That no individual gets more than any other, even if all three individuals get less than the group where there is disparity. In other words, if the individual gets 11, a second individual gets 15, and the third gets 20, and the second option is all three individuals get 9, women will tend to pick the one where all three get 9, which quite obviously in the aggregate is less. 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27. 10 plus 15 plus 20 is 35. 35 is more than 27, quite obviously. But women will consistently pick where all three get the same, and they will sacrifice their own well being, i.e., get less, get 9 instead of 10, in order to maintain equality of outcome for all three participants. This is very important. And this seems to be characteristic of women. I was kind of shocked the first time a woman told me her replies to the certain questions. I mean, I argued with her. I was like, well, in this case, you're going to get less. Yeah, she said, but it seems more fair. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay. And of course, I answered like a guy because I don't give a fuck about that kind of fairness. I care about different kind of fairness, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. Because fairness and unfairness and making sure not to experience unfairness is a key component of human morality. And in fact, it's the basic emotion that describes that impacts rather my my ethical system, or not my ethical system, my ethical study. That's the correct thing. But anyway, moving on. Um, the implications of this are pretty important, it seems to me, because the first is, of course, that men prefer equality of opportunity rather than equity. They don't want the same; they just want the best opportunity and an equality of opportunity for all. Whereas women prefer equity over equality of opportunity, most definitely. And they will consider equality of opportunity, quote unquote, bad. And they will consider it unfair. Whereas men will consider equity unfair because they're going to be saying, as most of you, I bet, are saying, I'm not looking at the chat now, but I bet most of you are saying, yeah, I don't want to get the same as everybody else if I'm going to get less. I want to get more. And if other guys have more, well, so be it. But I want more for myself. I don't want to have less, even if it's the same as everybody else. Yeah, that's a natural human trait. And it comes from evolution. And I'm going to get into it right in the next slide. But now the political implications of this should be obvious. More women are going to be socialist, and they're going to be naturally socialist. It's simple as that. Women will always skew more to socialism and quote unquote equity, of having everybody be the same. And men are going to be, for lack of a better word, a libertarian, of wanting, more opportunity for all and the more possibility for greater variance. And this, of course, goes to the thing about men is the greater male variability hypothesis, which, in any distribution, in any group of women or men, the women, it's going to be a bell curve, right? In any quality you measure among a group of women, and the women are going to be bunched up closer to the average than the men. The men are going to be their bell curve is going to be a lot more flat than a woman's. And that will mean, of course, that, see, in intelligence, to give a simple example, most women will be closer to the 100 IQ points than men. They'll be closer bunched up in the middle of the bell curve. The bell curve will be steeper at 100 than will be higher up. I mean, greater number at 100 than the men. The men, however, will have more men with mental retardation and more geniuses, because the bell curve is flattened out, and so there are more men at the extremes, at both extremes. There are more genius men and more retarded men. Whereas women, there'll be fewer retarded women and fewer genius women. They'll be closer to the middle. Okay. And it's been shown statistically that in most qualities, men are like that. There is greater male variability. And it's a hypothesis that's turning into kind of like a law, because just about in every characteristic, this is the case. There are more men at the extremes, at both a positive and negative extreme. Okay. And this actually makes sense because, you know, sperm are cheap and eggs are dear, right? And so it sort of like naturally follows that the males would be more at the extremes, and the females, because they have fewer eggs, they would tend to bunch up in the aggregate. You see? At the average rather. So, yeah, anyway, the political implications, men are going to be women are going to be more socialist and men more libertarian, right? Now, evolutionary drivers. Now, men have reproductive success, and notice what I'm arguing here. I'm arguing that this different morality is because of reproduction, not survival. Reproduction. Okay? Men have reproductive success by having as many resources as possible, while women have reproductive success by social compliance and cooperation. Because remember the original thesis that women need collective security in order to raise a child. Now, what does collective security imply? That the woman has a very good relationship with the collective because the collective is providing her with security. See? The collective is providing her with food. Uh, if you find it confusing, don't think of the society that we live in today. Imagine yourself in the savannah in Africa, or like a very cold winter in Europe in the Stone Ages, way before civilization, right? You're part of a tribe. You're part of a tribe, and you're wandering across Europe. You and your tribe. And your tribe is like, say, 20 people. And you're a woman, and you've got a baby at your tit, and you're walking, trundling along, right? And you can't get enough food to survive. Not on your own. You need others to help you. You need others to kill the woolly mastodon and bring you the food so that you can eat the food and feed the baby, because you simply can't. And so, what's your priority? Your priority is to have a strong personal relationships with all the people in your tribe, because they're the ones keeping you and your baby alive. If they don't help you, your baby dies and you have zero reproductive success. You see? And so a woman's priority is to have a strong relationship with the collective that is providing her with this security. Whereas the man has reproductive success by how many women he can fuck. And how does he determine that? By the amount of resources that he has. More resources for him, more sexual availability. You see? Women need strong long term social bonds with their collective to have reproductive success. That means social compliance, social cooperation. Men need more resources to have more mates. And at the same time, men need their collective to be as strong as possible so as to provide his offspring, not him, but his offspring, with the best collective security possible. You see the dual issues that a man has. It's not enough for him to have a lot of resources. He wants that, sure, so he can have more women who are going to be sexually available to him. But he also wants to make sure that his collective has the most resources possible to take care of his offspring later on, perhaps when he's not around anymore because he's dead. You see what I mean? And so though men have two this is my thinking at this point. I'm sort of like developing these ideas, and if you want to shoot them down later in the Q&A, feel free. But men have these dual needs: their individual resource accumulation to have the most mates, and for their collective to have as many resources as possible to provide collective security to those offspring. But the secondary thing, their collective having as many resources as possible, it's secondary. Because, see, if their collective has a lot of resources, but he has zero or less, he's not going to have reproductive success. So it serves no purpose. He wants first to have the most resources for himself, and only then for his collective to have more resources. Whereas the woman, she prefers the collective. The collective is the most important thing. And here's the thing about women. If the individual has more than others in the same collective, this leads to resentment and envy. That is social vulnerability, and thus possible death. And think of it. I mean, you've seen this. When somebody has a Lamborghini, there are other people who are like, "Ooh, wow, cool car," but a lot of them are like, "Oh, that fucking asshole, he's got like a Lambo and I don't." And there's resentment, there's envy. And what happens with those people who are envious and resentful? Well, they try to, scratch your car, right? I mean, it's an ugly facet of life, but it's the truth, right? Envious, resentful people will try to fuck your shit up because of envy and resentment. And so women, instinctively knowing this, will realize that it's to their benefit long term for there not to be any resource disparity. And so that's why they will prefer to have less so long as it's the same as everybody else. Since women's survival depends on social compliance, they will be averse to having more than others. Think of that phrase. Their survival depends on social compliance and fitting in, cooperation with their collective. So they will not want to have more, because if they have more, they become socially vulnerable. Whereas a man, if he has more sexual opportunity. That's what's going on. That's why men want more and women want the same. You see? I mean, let me go to the chat real quick and um how many of you guys plus hit me with a plus 333 if you understand this point. That's very, very important. Okay? That men want more to have more reproductive success and women want the same as everybody else, so that they don't become social targets and therefore their children die. Because if they become social targets and are isolated, then okay, great, you guys understood it. Then their children die and they have reproductive failure. And so these are the competing issues. Men want more resources to have more sex, or sex with more women and potentially more offspring, reproductive success. And women want to make sure that they don't piss anybody off because they depend on the collective for their survival. Okay? It's very important that you understand these two differing, very different motivations, and it's reproductive success. And some moron is going to say, "Well, I don't have a baby, so what does it matter? And I don't live in a tribe. I live in a city." You fucking moron! This is evolutionarily imposed on you over generations and generations. Our current industrial collective that we live in today is barely 300 years old, man. Okay, before that, for millions of years, literally, because this comes out of the fact when we were primates. And by the way, this issue of unfairness, you see it in chimpanzees, you see it in gorillas. They don't tolerate people, they don't tolerate, rather, individual chimps or individual gorillas having more, and without sharing, of course. Because a chimp, for instance, can have more, and the other chimps will come around to him, and that chimp who has more will share. But if he doesn't share, the other chimps will attack him, up to including killing him. See? Because what's going on there is that the other chimps want the resources of the chimp that has more. And if the chimp that has more is not giving them, then it's threatening their collective survival. And that's why they'll attack him. Okay? And this is part of primate behavior, it's part of human behavior, resentment and envy. Women want to avoid that at all costs. But men, it's not that they want to spark envy and resentment. They want to spark the attractiveness of females, because a man with a lot of resources attracts more females, because those females think that that man can protect them with those resources, can provide those resources to them. And that's why the female will want to mate with a male with a lot of resources, but the female will not want to have more resources than anybody else. And what's really interesting, if you look at the Muslims, and how the Muslims are very strict that a man can have multiple wives, but he has to treat them equally. That's really fucking indicative now, isn't it? It goes right into what I'm saying. How it's the man with more resources gets more women, but the women among themselves have to be treated equally because of the resentfulness. And it's really fucking interesting. Anyway, going back to this, to the things I was writing here. Having more than others in the same collective leads men to having more sexual opportunities, ergo reproductive success. I discussed this, right? Now, having a strong collective, even if the man has less than others, also ensures his reproductive success. See? And this is where I'm driving at, the second component to men's evolutionary drivers. He wants to have the most resources, but at the same time, or secondarily, he wants his collective to have more resources so that the collective will take care of his offspring. So most men will want more for themselves and more for their collective, so long as they have as much as possible. That's their priority. They want to have as much as possible for themselves. Okay? Now, I'm not 100% on this conclusion, and I'll explain why. Why wouldn't men prefer relative success, even to the detriment of the collective overall? You see what I mean? Wouldn't men prefer an option whereby they get less but get more than the others? Example, in the questions that I floated before. In option A, you get 10, Timmy gets 10, John gets 10. That is, the three of you get the same, right? Option B, you get 8, but Timmy gets 6 and John gets 4. That is, you have twice as much as John and 50% more than Timmy. I mean, relatively speaking, you're ahead of the pack. So why wouldn't you pick that? See, and that's an option that was not included in the questions. That formulation whereby, um, you know, all three get the same and it's more, or all three get less, but you get more than the other three. There was no formulation like that in the questions. I took it multiple times, and no time did that formulation come up. And I think that that's a very important formulation, because I think that that formulation, a lot of men would go for that. That they would prefer to be relatively better off than other men. Okay. Quickly, I'll go back to it just to show you, and you guys tell me if I have it on screen right now. You tell me if any of the questions is in that structure, whereby option one of the options is all three men have the same, and the second option is you have more, but it's less than the first option, and you have more than the other two guys. See, it doesn't seem to appear there, and I think that a lot of masculine men, masculine morality, would have picked that. Okay, um, and I think that men who have a very weak sense of the collective would have picked the one where they get more and it's equal to the other two guys. Men who have a very strong attachment to their collective would pick the one where they get more than the other two peers, even though they get less than in the other option where they get the same as their peers. See? Um, oh yeah, John Hancock says the COVID vaccine choice was the greatest IQ test of all time. Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. So anyway, you see the problem going on now. To go back to the thing, I'm not. I think that this is the question that needs to be answered. The issue of, uh, for me, if men would prefer um, less absolutely, but more relative to the others. That's the question being asked. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, like in my case, I would pick more absolutely, even if it's the same as the other two participants, right? And so it's an interesting conundrum. I think it would be interesting to float this question to a lot of people and get replies from men to see what they would choose. I mean, I can say unequivocally that I would choose option A. I get 10 and Timmy gets 10 and John gets 10, because in all the questions, I only cared about what I was getting. That was my first priority. And when in the two options I got the same amount, then I cared that the three of us, me and the other two individuals, be they strangers or people with an actual name, I cared that we in the aggregate got more. So that was my morality, and that was characterized as 100% masculine. But I think that that is an outsider's mentality, an outsider as I described it here, a person who is not a member of the collective. Now, I'm really this presentation is pretty damn short, man, because this is pretty much it. This is the end of the presentation, and I did it in an hour, which is I'm kind of shocked. I thought it would take longer. Um, but this is something that I've been. Let me put it this way: this discussion is part of the overall book that I'm writing about morality, right? And for me, it's um, once I've started looking at all interactions and all that is considered good and evil as this interplay between the individual and their collective, then everything made a lot of sense. And what I'm trying to capture is in prose is my sense today, because what's happened to me is that once I made this realization that all of morality, all of the various moral systems throughout our history are basically trying to um, come to terms with the different priorities between the collective and the individual, of collective security on the one hand, and the individual's drive to achieve his own goals in terms of survival, reproductive success, and reciprocal dependence and other needs. Then it's everything has become really clear. And what's really interesting is that I no longer see the notion of good and evil. I don't see it at all. I think it's absurd and trivial to reduce everything that this is good and this is bad. No, it has nothing to do with that. There is no such thing as good or bad because there's no absolute morality. Of course not. Because see, good and evil are what the collective and the individual have agreed to be good and evil. That is, what is good for both the individual and the collective, and what is either bad for the individual or bad for the collective, or detrimental. Let's put it that way, to remove the moral characterization. That which, let me repeat that which is good, quote unquote, is beneficial to the individual or to the collective without detriment to the other. That is, it is to the benefit of the individual and it does not hurt the collective, or it is to the benefit of the collective and does not hurt the individual. Or, of course, it could be to the benefit of both the individual and the collective. That's, quote unquote, the good. And the bad is that which is detrimental to the collective and either neutral or to the advantage of the individual, or vice versa, to the detriment of the individual and to the neutrality or benefit of the collective. That is what is the bad, okay? And all moral systems are basically that. It's that negotiation between the individual and the collective. And all the moral systems that we've read over the centuries at this point, in a weird way, what's going on is that all of these moral philosophers, from my point of view, they are like they are trying to expand and perfect their own moral system of whatever culture they are a part of without realizing that there is no universal morality, because every moral philosopher thinks that there is some universal moral philosophy. And by my model, there is obviously no such universal moral philosophy, because you see, each collective is different. Because at the end of the day, each collective has different resources at its disposal to provide collective security to its members. And think of it in these terms. Like, suppose you're a tribe in in ancient Germany, in ancient Denmark. Okay, it's cold as fuck. There's nothing around. Okay, this is Copenhagen doesn't even exist. Nothing exists. It's just fucking fjords. It's beautiful, but cold as balls, and resources are extremely limited, right? And see, some woman gives birth to triplets, say, just hypothetically. And the tribe of, say, a dozen people, they can't support three new mouths to feed. It's just too much. They can't even support two more mouths to feed. They can only support one. And so what do? They leave a couple of the infants there to die. Or maybe they outright kill them, in as humane a way as possible, but they have to go, right? And we'd be like, that's evil. But wait a second, that tribe is a subsistence tribe. They're barely scraping by. They're barely getting enough calories for their own survival. If they add on three new babies, just hypothetically, if this were even possible, and I'm sure it happened actually, it would impose such a weight on their very limited resources and their very limited ability to get more resources, more calories, that they would all die. They would all perish. So, in fact, in that circumstances, it would be evil to try to, support all three babies, because all the other 12 members of the tribe would die. The tribe can survive if it's, you know, 12 members plus one, but it can't survive if it's 12 members plus three. It's just not enough calories can be acquired. And so they would all die, and therefore, two of the babies have to go. And you'd think that this is horrible. Well, sure, in our society today, industrial collective that we live in, which is a global collective, which is part of the argument that I'm making. See, yeah, it would be horrible because we have more than enough resources. We have more than enough food. No problem at all, right? No problem whatsoever. And so, because we have so many resources, the notion of sacrificing two triplets would be outrageous. We'd call it immoral. We'd call it evil. I mean, we'd have a hissy fit, right? Of course, because we have the resources. What's good in the past is evil today. And what would be considered evil today is considered good in the past hypothetical that I made up of the triplets in fucking Denmark or whatever, in prehistoric Stone Age Denmark, right? And so you see the difference. It's an issue of resources. And since no two collectives have the same resources, there is always going to be differences in what is good and what is evil. There will never be a universal morality. You see? Because ultimately, that's the interplay that's going on. The limited resources of the collective and how they are distributed between the individuals that comprise the collective. In a rich society, what is good and what is evil is radically different from a poor society. In point of fact, in Africa to this day, a lot of tribesmen, when a woman gives birth to twins, they let one of the twins die. Yeah, that's a fact. Okay. And the storks, I've seen some video on fucking YouTube, man. It's kind of horrifying. There's this video I saw one time of a camera aimed at a stork's nest, right? And this bird, had three chicks. And, it came back from getting food, right? Lighted there on the nest and looked at the three and then picked the weakest one and tossed that weak one out of the nest to its death, of course. Okay, because the chick couldn't fly and the nest was way high. Just tossed him out to its death. Nature's cruel. And you say, my God, the evil stork, how evil that stork was. But no, the stork mother was doing the best for the other chicks because she could only provide a limited amount of calories to those two other chicks. And if she allowed the third one to remain, in the effort to preserve the third one, the other two would also die. And so, what's better? For all three chicks to die, or for one to die and two to survive? It's pretty fucking obvious now, isn't it? Yeah, if the stork had like a fucking, Trader Joe's or whatever the fuck to give her all the calories needed, well, no problem, no question, there would be no moral dilemma. But the fact is, there is no moral dilemma. Moral dilemmas only happen within the same collective when it's very liminal cases. But when it's an issue of resources, there is no moral dilemma. It's very fucking obvious. Now, this is one proof that there can never be one universal morality. One universal morality that is one standard of that which is good and that which is evil. Okay? That's one proof. Another proof is empiric. If there was one universal morality, it would already been apparent, and we already would have adopted it. I mean, think about it. Our history, is what 4,000 years old, roughly, right? And in all this time, all kinds of moral systems have come and gone, right? And currently, we have Christianity, we have Islam, we have Buddhism, Shintoism, and a few others, Zoroastrianism and whatnot. And we have a bunch of them. And in India, they have a whole cornucopia of fucking moral systems, right? But the issue becomes, has any one of them been shown to be head and shoulders better than all the others? No. In fact, see, there are individuals in every single moral system that can point and laugh and mock the other moral systems for their inbuilt contradictions. See? And of course, not realize their own inbuilt moral contradictions. See? But all the systems have inbuilt moral contradictions because they can't be one. For the reasons I explained, because of different resources and because um, what you call it? I mean, there cannot be one because of the reasons I explained. That's the issue of resources. And if there were one, it would have emerged by now. Now, this, of course, is an inductive inference that a lot of people will say, no, I disagree with. That it could be that we have still not yet achieved some sort of level such that such a universal morality emerges. But that doesn't make much sense, to tell you the truth. See? Because if there were such a universal morality, it would have emerged by now and it would not need particular sophistication or more IQ points or any shit like that. We wouldn't need more civilization to have discovered it. It would become self evident. Let's think of it these terms. See, there was a period of time before the wheel existed, and people had to trudge along and carry shit, or put it on a fucking horse, or whatever the fuck, right? Or get 10,000 slaves to move the fucking block up to build the fucking pyramid, right? But then one day, some smart motherfucker came up and said, "Hey, if you like get like a round thing and put it on some axes, you can move shit. It's real fucking easy." And ta-da, the wheel is born, and everybody uses the wheel. Nobody has to be convinced to use the wheel. It's fucking self-evident. It's self-evidently obvious how useful the fucking wheel is. And all of a sudden, everybody fucking builds roads as smooth as possible because it makes carrying shit with a wheel that much more efficient. And all of a sudden, holy shit, everybody's got a fucking cart with 4 fucking wheels on a smooth road. And then we figure out a way to, instead of having a horse pull the fucking cart, we put a self-propelled gas-burning engine in the fucking cart and close up the cart, and we have ourselves a car. We have an automobile. And we are driving around on the fucking freeway because of the fucking wheel. Once the emergence of the wheel happened, it was self-evidently useful and everybody adopted it. And of course, we can go through all the different inventions that human beings have created, and it's always the same. Once it emerges, it usually emerges early on. And once it does, everybody adopts it because of how absolutely useful it is. It's like the fucking iPhone. Yeah? Before the iPhone, that is the combination of a web browser, a, um, a music player, and a telephone, right? There was like the BlackBerry and stuff that was almost, but not quite, right? But the iPhone emerged, and all of a sudden, everybody wanted one. And all the other companies were like, fuck, we got to make ourselves our own iPhone. And they made Android. And everybody's got an Android. And now everybody's got a fucking cell phone, right? A smartphone. I mean, there was a time when people call them smartphones, but not anymore because all the cell phones now are fucking smartphones. They all have a fucking screen, right? The only difference is, what operating system and how big you want the fucking screen, right? But the usefulness was so self evident that you didn't need convincing, man. It's part of the reason that Apple became the most successful company in the world. Because you don't need to sell the shit sells itself, right? Okay, by the same token, if there were a universal morality, nobody would need proselytizing, nobody would need convincing. It would emerge and everybody would adopt it, and that would be that. The fact that it hasn't emerged means that it will never emerge because there is no such thing. And my theory as to what morality is, what morality actually is, explains why there will never be such a universal morality, because it's resources. It's that interplay between the individual and the collective and the allocation of resources. Because see, an individual goes and gets the resources, but the collective divvies it up. See, that's the point of it. Because the individual has to go and get resources so that the collective will survive and provide resources to those who cannot get resources. And here's the thing, all of us will be at a stage in life at one point or another when we cannot get the resources. When we are in our infancy, we need collective security. When we are in our maturity but injured, we need collective security. When we are in our old age, we need collective security. There are exceptional individuals, exceedingly rare, who at once they are past adolescence can survive without collective security. i.e., hermits. They can survive, but they're very rare, exceedingly rare. And many times, some of these hermits, you discover that they actually didn't survive on their own, like Ted Kaczynski. It always bothers me that in our neck of the woods and the internet and so forth, everybody just adores Ted Kaczynski. He was a fucking murderer, a cowardly murderer who sent packages to random people to blow up. That's fucking cowardice, and I don't give a fuck how you explain it away. There's nothing to explain it away. It was fucking evil, period. Okay? And you guys know in a previous webinar, and go to the index if you don't know, if you haven't seen it, I did a whole discussion of his fucking book. Everybody focuses on like how he denounces leftism, right? But the fucking thing is, inconsequential and trivial, and no wonder nobody would have published the fucking thing unless he threatened to kill more people, because the book is stupid, okay? And it has all kinds of internal contradictions that make it just dumb, okay? And it's like, fuck you, man. It's like a sophomore in philosophy a college sophomore in philosophy would have written, okay? No, but he was a hermit, but he actually needed money from his parents to survive and maintain his hermit lifestyle. In more than one occasion, he visited his parents during his sojourn in Montana, where the fuck he was, and got cash from his parents. That's a fact. See? And you look through history, a lot of historical hermits, a lot of Catholic saints and whatnot who are hermits, and you discover that along the way they got helped out or they were injured at some point, and some group of people, i.e., a collective, helped them out. See? There are exceedingly few people. And what happens, of course, is that eventually the hermit, if he's a true hermit, if say at the age of 20, he decides to go out to the fucking Alaska wilderness and survive on his own, there will come a point in time when he's 40, 50, certainly by the time he's 60, when he will become too old to acquire enough calories to survive, and he will die. It's inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable. Okay. I mean, let's assume that he makes it to 60 without any injury, because if he's injured on his own, he'll die. Simple as that. I mean, I broke my ankle back in September of 2020. You all know that, right? And, dude, I was in the hospital for a week, right? And they did surgery, all kinds of sophisticated surgery. I was in incredible pain. They gave me painkillers. They gave me surgery. They gave me all kinds of shit. Shit that, of course, I never would have gotten if I weren't under the umbrella of collective security, right? Because all those people in the hospital, what the fuck you think that is? That's collective security. That's what it looks like, okay? And so that collective security provided me with the opportunity to recuperate and be fed and not die of hunger or thirst, right? Not to mention excruciating pain, because the fucker hurt like a son of a bitch after I broke it. I mean, Jesus Christ, I've never felt that much pain. They gave me Special K. I tripped out like fantastic, man. It was unbelievable, right? But dude, I needed that shit because the pain was just insurmountable. It was unbelievable. I mean, really, no kidding. I've never experienced something that painful. Well, yeah, I shattered my fucking, ankle to smithereens. But anyway, and of course, it wouldn't have happened if I weren't skydiving. And skydiving, of course, depends on the collective to provide the plane and the pilot and all the other shit to make it happen. But anyway, I'm going off topic. The point: we all need collective security, all of us. Nobody can survive on his own. Nobody. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yes, there are exceptional individuals who, for a short time, can do so, or perhaps even a long time. But even that individual in his infancy could not survive on his own. And that's the point. In the end, as a species, we depend on reproduction. No babies, no human beings, no species. We get wiped out, extinction. That's it. And so we need babies. How do babies survive? Under the umbrella of collective security. And we have all been babies, right? Yeah, some of us still are. But the serious point, since we've all been infants, helpless infants, that could not survive on our own, we all needed that collective security. And it's not merely that the mother provided this security, because the mother on her own cannot acquire enough calories for herself or her infant. And so that interplay between the individual who gets resources, the individual who acquires calories for himself and his offspring and his woman and whatnot, he has to share them. He has to share them with the collective. It's the price the individual pays in order to receive the benefits of the collective security that the collective is providing. You are in a tribe, right? A tribe of a dozen. That's your collective. You belong there. Now, you have to work for the protection of all the members in the collective. So, say, for the sake of argument, that you're in fucking, Asia somewhere in the year 10,000 BC, okay? Long before any civilization or shit like that. And you're walking around, and all of a sudden, you stumble across like a pack of fucking saber-toothed tigers. And so, what the fuck you guys do? You and the other 11 members of your tribe, you all gather together, you pick up your spears, and some of you are much better warriors. And some of you are infants or small children, 4-year-old, 7-year-old children who, a 7-year-old boy, I've got one of my own, they're brave little guys, but they're little guys. They can't do shit. Now, can they? No. And so what you do, you put the old, the infirm, the infants, the women, you put them in the middle of your collective, and you who are stronger, you and like the 3 other men who have like the muscles and the strength to pick up your spear or your bow and arrow perhaps and fight off the saber-toothed tigers, you surround your little tribe, the other members, the weak members of your tribe, and you protect them, right? And you fight the saber-toothed tiger, but the guy to your left and the guy to your right and the guy behind you, he's also fighting off the saber-toothed tigers. They're fighting off the saber-toothed tigers that are trying to attack you, but you don't see because they're coming up on your blind spot. But the guy to your left, stabs that saber-toothed tiger before he gets you. And the other guy to your right and the other guy behind you do more or less the same thing. And you do the same for your mates. And see, that's how you are providing collective security. And of course, you are sacrificing calories, energy, resources to provide protection to these other members. You are giving up what you have for the sake of the others. You are participating in that collective security. And they, the weak, the women, the children, the old, the family members that you have, and of course, these are not random family members. These are your parents who are elderly at this point. It's your woman. It's a couple of your kids, right? And the guy to your left is your brother, and the guy to your right is your brother-in-law, right? Married to your sister, some shit like that, with kids also. All of these people, they're all your family members. You're giving up your resources to defend them, and you're making sacrifices for the collective security by fighting off the saber-toothed tiger. And then later on, when the tigers are all dead or, driven off or whatnot, and, you decide to cook one of these dead saber-toothed tigers because fuck it, meat's meat and you're fucking hungry, right? Well, your woman is going to do that while you go with your brother and your brother-in-law and traipse around a little bit to see if there are any more of these fucking tigers around or where the fuck, do a little scouting mission or some shit like that. And your woman, she sacrifices her time and energy to make food, not just for herself, and the kid, not just for herself, the kid, and you, but also for the other members of of the um, the collective. You see, of the tribe, because in this case, the collective is the tribe of a dozen. That it's hypothetical, right? But see, these tribes, these collectives, can be a dozen people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, 1,000,000,000 people. I'm arguing in my book that we currently live in the industrial collective. It's worldwide. It's global. Okay, and I'm not going to get into it in this conversation because it's sort of like not important. But what I want to emphasize in this coda to this discussion of the differences in morality between men and women is that, see, this notion that is just so idiotic of certain men in our neck of the woods who claim that they can live without other people. It's just stupid. Because what's happening is that, see, they're saying this because they don't see how their safety depends on other people, how their continued existence depends on other people. Because you see, in industrial collective, The supermarket down the street that easily provides you the food that you need to survive, even with inflationary prices, right? That supermarket, well, who's putting the food there? Is it just being magicked there or some shit like that? No, it's some other motherfucker who's bringing on a truck. And that fucker, where did he get the food for the truck? Well, from some fucking farmer, God knows where, right? And they made the food and put it on the truck and they delivered it to the supermarket and put it there so that you can pop in, buy a bunch of calories that, 10,000 years ago in the fucking steppes of Asia or wherever the fuck would have been inconceivable, the amount of calories that you can just pop in and buy with a day's worth of wages, for crying out loud, inconceivable. And you just waltz in, get all these calories, and you're like, oh yeah, man, I'm living on my own. I don't depend on nobody. As you carry all your fucking groceries to your fucking car, and as you drive in your car, and all the other people in their cars are tacitly, implicitly respecting the road rules and not crashing into you and totaling your car and potentially killing you. What the fuck you think is going on? See? I mean, you see my point and why it aggravates me so much. Anybody who says that they don't live under the umbrella of collective security is a fucking moron, because we all do all the time. And once you understand that, once you understand, of course, that you are making sacrifices for the collective security, and the collective is providing you with security and resources and opportunities, then you start to understand what is good and what is evil. And then you understand that it's always subjective, it's always relative, and it depends on the resources available to the collective. Like the example of the triplets in Denmark, in prehistoric Denmark, right? Of the tribe of 12, and some woman bears triplets, and two of those triplets have got to go for the health and well-being of the tribe. And that decision to kill off two infants is good. You say it's infanticide. No, it's not. Well, it is infanticide, but it's necessary because they don't have the resources to survive. And that's the crux of the matter. All that is good, all that is evil is resource dependent. Those judgments of morality are resource dependent. Okay. Anyway, I've gone on far enough. And just to reiterate the point about men and women, see, women, their reproductive success, it's a long-term thing. They need to have long-term, strong relationships with the collective. And that's why they want to avoid envy and resentment at all costs. Whereas men, I mean, they come and they're done, aren't they? I mean, it sounds very vulgar, but it's true. A man, all he needs is sexual opportunity. He has sexual opportunity, and that means that he will have reproductive success. And how does he get sexual opportunity? By having as much resources as possible. The collective matters, yes, so that the offspring will grow up in an environment that will provide him some protection. But it's not really the primary driver. It's the man's need to get as much resources as possible in order to attract the most number of females to him. Whereas a woman, she wants to ensure that she has a strong relationship as possible with the collective so that the collective never rejects her, and more importantly, never rejects her offspring. That's the point. And that's why you have these divergent decisions between men and women. It's all about reproductive success, not survival. Reproductive success. Okay, so with that, I've come to the conclusion of my presentation. Let me just put it there, and let me just put the invite link. Hang on, it'll appear there now as I'm speaking. Somebody telegrammed me. Somebody cuter than you guys. So anyway, yeah, Oh man, I'm gonna have to put this on mute. I mean, it's actually somebody that I'm very keen on talking to, but now is an inopportune time. Oh, Yannick is here. Let's bring on Yannick. And hey, Yannick, how's it going, man?
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Long time no see.
Yeah, how's it going? Where are you at now?
I am in Phuket, Thailand.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, basically, I was in Bangkok, and I have a friend who has accommodations here. So
Something's up with your audio. Why don't you fix it?
test, 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 test.
Yeah, better. Yeah, go ahead. What's your
Okay.
question?
Yeah. Actually, I just wanted to circle back on what you were saying about twins in Denmark and everything, and I couldn't help
Fix
but
your
make the
audio.
parallel.
Dude, fix your audio. Yeah, I'm gonna mute you and you fix it and bring I'm gonna bring on Chris. Get like the regular things because your audio is going down as you start talking. So I don't know what's up with that. Um Chris, how's it going? Well,
Good man.
Yannick,
How are you?
I'm gonna boot you. Hang on, Yannick. I'm gonna boot you, but what you call it? I'm not booting you. I'm just taking you off screen until you fix your audio and then I'll bring you back on. Okay? Chris, sorry about that. How's it going?
No problem, coach. Good, actually good. I was listening to your morality and the difference between the masculine side and the feminine side. And
Hmm.
my question to you is, how do you think? How should I put it? Do you think we still have a collective here in the Western society? Because we tend to live a more hedonistic lifestyle, both
Yeah.
men and women.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that what's happened is that see the industrial collective that we have developed, okay, has been incredibly useful in providing material comfort to people. Okay, material plenty, food, shelter, and the rest of it, and sexual opportunity too. It has been incredibly successful. Okay, and what has happened though is that the industrial collective has made people feel psychologically adrift. It's because the industrial collective has created this material success in a way that is divorced from the visceral inputs that we have been evolved to perceive. And the key input is what I'm describing in my work, the work I'm doing now. It's called reciprocal dependence. Okay. Now it's a slightly pompous phrase, but I couldn't come up with anything better. Reciprocal dependence or reciprocity of need. And what it is basically the following: we need to feel needed by others, and we need to need other people in turn. For instance, you and I are in the same tribe.
Okay.
I have to feel that you need my support. And I have to feel that I can depend on you specifically. Okay? This reciprocity of need is a psychological need. Now, suppose you and I are in the same tribe. Now, you, for instance, you are a shit cook, but you're really good at hunting. And because I have bad eyesight, I'm shit at hunting, but really good at cooking. So we complement each other very well, right? And
Yeah.
you mock me because I can't see a fucking thing, and I mock you because you burn everything that you try to cook, right? And yeah, we're joking with each other, but we're complimenting each other. I depend on you, you depend on me. And perhaps I have other things that are necessary for your survival. You know, I'm a learned person, so suppose in this prehistoric tribe that you and I are living in, I know shitloads about like when is it what's a poisonous food and what's a healthy food. And I tell you, don't fucking eat that, you'll die, but this other thing you can eat it. And so you depend on me. You see? And I
Yeah.
depend on you because you are going out there and killing the woolly mammoth and you're bringing it back and sharing it with me, right? And so this reciprocal dependence that we have, it makes us feel confident, okay? And have you noticed how, like in like football teams, American football or association football, right? Uh, uh, people, players on the team, they have these very strong bonds. Why is it? Why do they have these such strong bonds? Why
Teamwork.
do high school right, exactly. Reciprocity of need. But in our industrial collective, we have created a society whereby there is division of labor and specialization. And so food arrives like magic. It just arrives from our hind brain, lizard brain, monkey brain. It's like fucking magic. We go to the supermarket, boop, there it is. There's the food. And we
Yeah,
just
I know,
hand over
because
money and yeah. And
yeah,
so we don't have that connection. But people always talk about this bullshit that, oh, we don't have a connection in modern society. But you have to understand what we're talking about when we talk about connection. It's that knowing that you are going to help me and I am going to help you. It's a psychological need. Because when we feel this, we feel more secure because we feel that we are part of a collective that is providing us with collective security. But when we don't have that input of the human interaction, we start feeling anxious. And so, why do you think that so many people feel anxious and are on anxiety medication and they're depressed all the time? Because even though they are eating food and they're getting enough calories, their
they
their
don't
their brains don't feel as if
the
they are a
human
part of.
interaction.
Yeah, but why the human interaction? To have this feeling that they are a part of collective security. We have this need to feel it, not just to know it. You see the difference?
Yeah, yeah, I see. Because that's what today I was also listening to another podcast of Fresh and Fit.
Yeah,
I'm and they had a guest, Rollo Tomassi. I don't know if you
yeah,
heard about him. He
yeah,
wrote some kind of books, and he was talking about something similar like you are talking about here regarding women, that rather than being with a beta, they would sacrifice a lot of time, energy, years of their life to get to a point where they are basically the alpha, the man they want to marry. So that's where this comes into discussion with you, with the fact that in our Western society, basically, as we go on a daily basis, we start to have less and less collective uh, than, let's say, the Eastern society, like Asia, for example, India, Africa.
Do
Because
you know why white women are attracted to black men and other men of color? It's
no,
really fucking easy. It's really fucking easy to understand. It's not some weird racial fetishization or any shit like that. What's going on is that a lot of white women, when they meet black men, for various cultural reasons, have an extended network of people that they know, of strong social bonds. Okay.
uh-huh.
And that feeling that those black men are connected to a collective, an actual collective where they meet other men, the white women feel very attracted to that. I'm going to do a video about this in my free channel later on, when I retake my free channel. And what happens is that the white women, they feel this very powerful bond that the black man and the Hispanic men, for instance, have with their family members, with their mates, their buddies, because the white women, many of them, come from extraordinarily alienated families where it's just the
Yeah,
nuclear family and no other human connection. And so it's not that they're attracted to the black guy because he's black. They're attracted to the black guy because blacks and Hispanics, for cultural reasons, have extremely strong collective
collective
bonds.
ties, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're attracted to that, not to the black guy. And it's not some weird sexual fetish or some shit like that. No,
So
because the woman
basically,
responds to that feeling that if she's with this guy who happens to be black, she will be a part of this very strong collective that will
huh,
provide her security. Whether this is, I mean, between a guy who's a millionaire but alone, and a black guy with a strong collective around him, the woman will choose the black guy with a strong collective around him because, see, the millionaire who's alone, who's on his own, he is not giving her the visceral sense that he has, that he can provide protection for her. See,
Hmm.
you see what's going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. I see. Basically, we're looking in our adult life more or less for what we lacked in our childhood. Too.
No, no, that's not it. No, it's not that
No.
the woman lacked it. She might have grown up in a state of collective security, but
Mm.
what she's attracted to in a mate,
Ah,
okay,
okay. Okay.
whether
Okay.
she grew up in that environment or not, what happens is that a lot of the white women are meeting the white men who are disassociated from any collective.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are not attracted to him, not because of him, but because of the fact that he is signaling to her that he does not have any collective security, therefore he is vulnerable.
Uh-huh. Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, since he is vulnerable, this is again a subjective hindbrain kind of evolutionary response. Then she thinks to herself, well, this guy will not protect me because he doesn't have a collective that supports him, and therefore my child will be killed by the saber-toothed tiger. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
there are no saber-toothed tigers. The woman has no intention of having a kid anytime soon. Okay, and the white guy might be a millionaire, but it's the visceral reaction that she has, and
I
that's why she
understand.
rejects him and goes for the guy who happens to be black, but that's not the issue. The issue is he has this strong collective group around him, his parents, his extended his siblings, extended family, and his buddies, his gang maybe. I mean, like a lot of times these women gravitate to a black guy who is a fucking gang member, but the gang the gang, what is the gang providing to that individual, to that male? It's providing him this extended family, this collective security. And that's why she goes to him. You
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not that she lacks that collective security in her upbringing. She could come from that. And how many times have you seen some girl from an upper class background with a lot of extended family and a lot of all kinds of stuff? She winds up going with some guy who's a piece of shit, gang
Yeah.
member, but it's
Yeah.
because of this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Thanks for your time, coach.
No problem. I hope I helped you out.
Yeah.
Okay, Laris, how's it going?
How's it going, Coach?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's on your mind, man?
With respect to this dynamic, how does it relate to the sort of lone wolf syndrome? Because you were talking about a lot of people.
Lone wolf doesn't exist.
No, I know it doesn't really exist, but there are a lot of guys that think they can sort of be lone wolves or whatever. Yeah.
Mental masturbation.
Right.
Simple as that. Sorry for being so obscene on camera, right? But it's simple as that.
We all do it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, and some of us multiple times per day.
Right.
But anyway, no, seriously. Look, see, a lot of guys explain away the fact that they are not part of a collective in our industrial collective, in our I don't want to call it industrial society because I don't want people to equate what I'm saying with Ted Kaczynski's bullshit. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I'm not calling it industrial society. And it's more appropriate to call it industrial collective. Okay. But what happens is that in a lot of individuals in our industrial collective, they do not have any kind of personal collective. So some where they have actual people who would actually stick up for them, like gang members have. A gang member, in South Central LA or wherever the fuck, his Crips or Bloods or whatever, or MS-13 or whatever. Why the fuck do you think that so many young men gravitate towards that? Because it provides them a sense of collective security, an
Yeah.
identity, a sense of self, but more than just a sense of self, a sense of protection, that they've got their bros, their homies around them who will look after them. Okay. And this is exceedingly important. Okay. And we human beings gravitate towards this, men and women. We want to feel that collective security because we need it to survive. And what happens is that in our industrial collective, in the abstract, we know we survive because of our industrial collective, but on a visceral level, we don't feel it. And that lack of that feeling, and that feeling that we're all alone, some people handle it by declaring themselves to be lone wolves or some shit like that, right? Or Sigma males or whatever nonsense. And other people get depressed and go on Xanax or whatever other medication there is, right? Because the anxiety, see, because it's so anxiety producing for a very simple reason. You're an individual in 10,000 BC in fucking, the Alps or wherever in Switzerland. And today Switzerland is a fucking paradise, right? But 10,000 years ago, it's a fucking hellhole.
Right.
Yeah, it's the fucking Alps. Nothing grows. Anything alive that you can eat is running as fast away as possible away from you. I mean, it's fucking a nightmare to survive there. The only good thing going is that you have sort of like access to fresh water. But other than that, nutrients, food, vegetables, fruit, fuck, man, it's a hellhole, right? Very beautiful, but a hellhole. And so you're going on your own. And what's the emotion that you're feeling? Anxiety. Because you're, evolutionarily speaking, if you are not part of a collective and know it, have the sense of the people around you looking after you, you're going to die. And it's 100% going to happen. Okay? It's not like maybe. And so we have been bred, evolutionarily speaking, to feel tremendous anxiety and fear, in fact, terror, when we feel ourselves to be alone. And we strive to find a collective. And have you noticed that when you're on your own and you see a group of people, you gravitate towards them and start chatting them up and seeing if they're friendly and try to join in? Why do you think that that's the case? Why do you think that people are so sociable to begin with? Why? Why do we seek each other's company? Because we recognize at a fundamental level that we cannot survive on our own. And so we are constantly looking for a collective to which to belong. But our industrial collective, the society that we live in today, provides us with the resources to survive, but not the visceral input to realize that we're okay. And so that's why so many of us have anxiety. That's why so many of us constantly try to become part of a community. That's why so many of us latch on to ridiculous ideologies like leftism, for instance, which is logically idiotic, but it gives us a sense of belonging. We need to belong. If we don't have that feeling of belonging, we go insane. And so we are willing to spout all kinds of bullshit, all kinds of leftist ideology, the patriarchy and institutionalized oppression and microaggressions and all this bullshit in order to feel that we belong. You see? And what has happened is that our industrial collective makes us feel that we don't belong anywhere. And so we become easy prey to uh, Jim Jones, basically, to people selling us ideologies that are insane and that will lead to our death or destruction. Leftism is an example. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually read a book called Influence. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Nope.
Dr. Cialdi. So I recently I'm getting into like marketing and stuff like that. So I'm learning how all that works, how the mind works. And one of the reasons why he was able to do that is because he isolated them in a foreign place in the jungle where they didn't have any contact with family members. And in essence, he created what was called, I guess, like an affirmative train or something like that. Little by little, he would have them do things for him. So by the time he asked them to drink this poison, like they were already in. They like went peacefully. They just marched right to it. They drank it and then they died on the spot. So it was pretty intense.
You're talking about the Jim Jones and Guyana thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing do you think? Well, first of all, then it explains why people have such a visceral reaction when you speak against leftism or whatever, or
Yeah.
even question anything.
You're going against their collective.
Right. I mean, to the point where they want to annihilate you and completely cancel you and destroy your life.
Well, it makes sense because, see, if you're part of a collective and your collective is attacked, you attack in return. You
Right.
fight to defend your collective. See? And that's why this leftism shit, it's not going to end. That's the problem. It's going to go all the way. There's no way to stop it. The train cannot be stopped. It's past some magical tipping point, and it cannot be stopped. Okay?
So
That's the thing.
So then the antidote, obviously, I'm the guy who called you a couple weeks back about I'm an actor and I quit. So obviously I don't fit in that I'm not riding that train. So I guess
Okay.
the antidote is to find other um I guess other tribes really, because it seems like it's just a really intense form of tribalism.
Well, no, it's not. It's not an intense form of tribalism. You have to think of it in the terms that a tribe is a form of collective.
Right.
See, and it's the most basic one. Okay, and that's the thing. See, it's providing collective security, and so
Sure.
you become extremely protective of it because it's essential to your survival. And if it has certain tenets that are illogical, you go along with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. And so you see the leftist. I mean, this is a classic example of what industrial collective does. It alienates people so that any ideology can take them over. And the thing is, see, one of the point of departure for me to figure this shit out was, in fact, why is leftism rising again? And why didn't leftism rise before the Industrial Revolution? Because it didn't. Why now? And I've understood it. It's in the Industrial Revolution that created the industrial collective. Karl Marx could not have written anything, before the Industrial Revolution. It's the Industrial Revolution that has caused this alienation because it's brought us material prosperity, which is a good thing, a remarkable thing. Our population as a species has exploded because of the Industrial Revolution, because of industrial agriculture, industrial production that has allowed us to have all kinds of benefits. It has made our population explode. But the cost is this alienation, this
Hmm.
lack of reciprocity of need, of reciprocal dependence. See, we don't need it. We don't need, we don't, in the past, we would know the farmer, we would know him personally. We would know the owner of the pigsty, we would know the cobbler, we would know the people, and we would depend on them in the village, for instance. I mean, think of the ancestral village. Most people in all society, in Asia, Africa, Europe, they lived in small tribes called the village, and they farmed, and you knew who the farmer was, you knew who made the food that you ate, and you yourself provided other foods, and there was this loose division of labor, but everybody worked together, and you had to put up with people.
Right.
That's the key issue. But now you don't have to put up with anybody. You don't have to put up with their shit. Why? Because if somebody's giving you shit, you go to somebody else who can provide you the same service or the same good, and presto, you don't have to put up with them. See? And so you become more and more unwilling to compromise. And what also happens, and this is a big part of what I'm writing, you become more and more resentful if you don't have what you think is fair. And more to the point, you're able to join forces with other people who are resentful. Because, see, in previous tribes, in the village, in the ancestral village, say, be it Africa, Asia, Europe, wherever the fuck, right? Be it Aztec or be it fucking Japanese, right? In each of these villages, there was always somebody who was extremely resentful. And that resentful guy helped in identifying unfairnesses of the local community and fixing them. That resentful guy, he was always resentful, but he was just one guy in the village. But with the industrial collective, what happened is that, see, because of the process of industrialization, allowed us to separate people by their different qualities in order to guide them towards the different industries so as to have a more efficient economy, which is a good thing because specialization allowed for the factory, allowed for farming in an industrial scale, allowed for all kinds of efficiencies of scale. But what was left over were the resentful people. And the resentful people agglomerated. And they're the ones who became communists. They're the ones who became socialists. In the current situation that we're living in today, the critical race theory and all this bullshit. But what it basically is cultural Marxism. It's Marxism or racial Marxism. And what's going on? What are Marxists basically? They are the resentful people that have all coalesced on a particular issue. Back in the day, they all coalesced on the issue of money and income distribution. But now they've coalesced on the issue of race, and they push that issue. It's not that race is real. I mean, racism is real. It's not even that in the past the capitalists were exploiting. No. What's happening is that a group of resentful people have all coalesced. And resentful people, when sprinkled all over the society, in the different tribes, in the different villages, and the different little groups of people, they're actually a good thing. Because those inherently resentful people will always jump up whenever they see some injustice or some, what is an injustice? It's an unfairness. It's when resources are not allocated in a fair way or in a way that most people consider fair in that particular collective. But what happens is that in our industrial collective, we have this division of labor where all the people of a certain type tend to gather. People who are very persnickety about data and information, they tend to become engineers. And you notice that all engineers, all computer scientists, programmers, they tend to be the same type, very nitpicky and very detailed and kind of autistic, right? And that's a good thing because all these guys are all gathered in one, one column, right? And those are the computer programmers. And then there are those guys who are very loquacious and they're very good at messaging and they're very good at convincing other people and they all become marketers. And that's like another column of people. You see? Like marketing gathers all these very loquacious and articulate people and they all gather together in one column. You see what I'm saying? They're like sprinkled throughout the society and they come like a magnet to one magnet. And by the way, I'm using this magnet metaphor in when I'm writing. All the marketing people come to this one magnet, and all the detail-oriented people, the numbers people come to this magnet of computer programming, right? And there are all these magnets of different types of people. Well, the same thing happens with the resentful people. And these resentful people are very good when they're sprinkled all over the society. One or two members in each village to point out whenever there's an unfairness. But when they're all concentrated, they become cancerous to the society. And that's what we're seeing now. And this is an inevitable byproduct of industrialization. That's the theory that I'm developing. Guys in chat, do you guys understand what I'm saying? Hit me with a +333 if what I'm saying makes any sense at all to you guys, because it's kind of like central to what the fuck I'm talking about insofar as the industrial collective. I hope you fuckers get where I'm coming from. Do you, Laris, understand where I'm coming from?
No, I understand completely. And so, because you made that one video about like if you're in the West, get out now.
Yeah.
Some time ago. I guess it's sort of a thing where it sounds to me, and I try not to be nihilistic. I try to be as optimistic as I can. Otherwise,
You sure you go insane, yeah, or
Yeah,
you
otherwise
just
you
kill
go-
yourself. Yeah, that's no
Yeah.
fun at all.
you go insane. So, but it sounds like it's just we're kind of circling the drain here, and I guess it just seems like finding a place
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
is
we're
just
we're
what
we're
it
circling the
is.
drain. The Western civilization is circling the drain, but I think that there are places where we won't go down the toilet. Okay, I
Right.
think Western Europe and North America are fucked, and it's
Right.
over. Okay, and we're just circling the drain. It's going to be fucking horrifying. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, you have no fucking idea how bad it's going to get. Okay, I mean, I just the more I think about it, and the more I start toying with this model and applying it to what's going on now, the more I think that the just complete obliteration and civil war of the West is inevitable, because this group of alienated, resentful people, it's not only that they're alienated and resentful, they have made it a virtue. And so a lot of people are trying to join this tribe, this column of resentful, hateful people because they think it's a good thing.
Mm.
And you've seen these people that they start crying because of racism towards black people. You're black, aren't you, Alaris? I'm
No,
asking.
I'm Hispanic.
Okay, okay,
I'm
you're
Dominican.
a person of color. So am I, by the way. Because there's the vowels at the end of my first and last name, so that fucking makes me fucking a
I
person
fucking
of color.
I
Yeah.
fucking hate that shit more than you. You have no idea, man. It drives me nuts.
Oh man, you hate the fact you're a self-hating, you're self-racist, man.
What the fuck, man?
Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. But anyway, like I was saying, man, I mean, like to get back on point, you've seen these fucking people who cry these crocodile tears about the racism against the people of color and shit like that. And you're like, what the fuck you talking about, right?
Yeah,
And what's going on is that, see, it's become a virtue to whine. It's become a virtue to be resentful and jump up and say, that's racist. Okay. I mean, people are fighting each other to figure out what's more racist so that they can get the kudos for having identified this racism over whatever stupid fuckish shit is going on. Right? It's absurd, right?
yeah,
But that's what's happened for a variety of historical accidents. It's not important for this conversation because I realize that the reason this all happened was because of the civil rights movement. Because the civil rights movement in the United States in the 1960s made it a virtue to identify racism. And so, since it becomes a virtue to identify racism, and also you received plaudits for being considered a victim of racism, it just created the incentive for people to, number one, go out of their way to identify racism wherever they saw it, and number two, claim that they were the victims of racism. And of course, it expanded from racism to any kind of bigotry because then it become, oh, I'm the victim of sexism. I'm a white woman, but I'm victim of sexism. And then it became, oh, I'm a gay man. I'm the victim of homophobia. And then it became, I'm a left-handed person and I'm the victim of left-handed bigotry or some shit like that. And all kinds of stupid ass shit, right? And also it started happening that people who were essentially privileged and very well off in the society, in order to escape that feeling of guilt that they might have, they could claim that they were the victim of something. Okay, and that's what's happened. And I write a lot about this stuff in the book that I'm writing on, that I'm working on now. But it's not important. I mean, I don't want to go on and on about it because I also want to bring back Yannick and answer some more questions. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, see, these resentful people have discovered that it's to their social benefit to continue to be resentful and to keep the rest of the population on the back foot with constant accusations of racism and bigotry of whatever random sort. And so they have an advantage. And eventually what will happen is that the normal people, non-resentful people, are just going to start fighting back. Because
yeah,
what's happening is that the resentful people are upping the ante, constantly upping the ante, and they're eventually starting to get violent against the normal people. And the normal people are saying, enough of this. And the normal people are going to fight back. And it's going to be really fucking ugly. And the best model is to see what happened in Russia, Imperial Russia, during and immediately after the revolution of 1917, the two revolutions of 1917, and the civil war that happened. That's the model. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to be the Reds against the whites again. The Reds being, in that time, the communists, and the whites, everybody else, basically. It's going to be the same thing. And my fear is that the Reds, who are today the racialists, the whole woke crowd, those people, I fear that they're going to win. And right now they're winning because they captured institutional power. That's the terrible thing. They have captured that institutional power and they know how to wield it and they know how to fuck over other people. And that's why back in October, I realized on a visceral level that it was time to go. but now I have more of an intellectual framework, a model to be able to explain why it's time to leave and why the normal people, the non-woke people, I don't think that they can win. And it's basically because they captured institutional power.
Right.
Yeah.
They've infected everything at this point. So
Yeah.
um you have a Telegram? Is
Yeah.
that a thing?
Yeah, but it's fucking nasty as fuck. It's toxic as all get out. Anybody who's got the link, I actually don't fucking know my fucking Telegram shit. It's all kinds of, dude. No, it's my own private 4chan. I fucking love it. You know, I mean, I deliberately set up a channel that is, yeah, it's real CRP. Because actually somebody beat me to and squatted on the name Coach Red Pill, so I couldn't use it. And so I'm not Coach Red Pill on Telegram. I'm Real CRP, REAL CRP. Let me, yeah, let me see if you can. Yeah, you can look at it. So let me put it on camera. Wait a second. Wait, I'm trying to. Do you guys see it? Wait. No, you guys don't see it. I can't fix it so that you can see it on screen, but so you just have to take my word for it. Let me type it out in chat.
They I think they put a link in the chat there for me.
Oh, somebody put a link in the chat?
Yeah, thanks for that, guys.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. I'm not. This is weird. My chat is not updating. Fucking weird. Much of it. I'm not seeing it. Who put it up there? And can you, because I want to put it on screen. And the last one I have is of Mateo at 8:04. This is the last one I'm having on my chat.
This is Yannick.
Yeah, at what time?
107. Oh, 107 my time.
Yeah. 7 minutes past the. It's fucking weird. For some reason I'm not seeing all the chats. This is fucking weird. I don't quite know what's going on with StreamYard because it's not allowing me to see. Oh, you can't put link on chat. Oh, that's weird. Okay, well, I'll just do it real quick. T.me. Okay, how's that? Yeah, there. Yeah, that's my Telegram. Okay. And like I said, it's fucking toxic as all get out. I mean, it's just a fucking dumpster fire. And the chat, it's racist and anti-Semitic and sexist. Sexism is the least of it, It's almost fucking cannibalistic, man. All kinds of just disgustingness is going on in chat. And I fucking love it. Because I'm just like letting the chat find its own level, and its level is fucking low. I'll tell you that right the fuck now, man. So if you're looking for like wholesome family entertainment, do not fucking go to my fucking channel, right?
I don't follow you for that, Coach.
No, yeah, but okay, fair enough. But no, it's fucking funny, man. And yeah, I like it. I just enjoy it. I get a kick out of it because, like I said, it's like my own private 4chan, and that's why I have it set up the way I do. And if I get canceled, I don't give a fuck, But yeah, join it up, and yeah, great talking to you, man.
You
and
too.
Let me take it easy, and see you next time. And let me bring on Yannick. Yannick, how's the sound going?
Testing.
Go ahead.
How's
all
that?
good. Yeah, all good.
Excellent. So it's my phone that's fucking up, not my earphones.
Okay, whatever. So
cool. So I just want to circle on what you were talking about. One, about the twins, and two, about the collective security.
Okay, what about the
So
twins specifically?
immediate when you were talking about the twins in Denmark, that two of them had to be sacrificed and
The
everything.
triplets, yeah, triplets, yeah.
Triplets. Sorry, my
Yeah.
bad.
Sure, no.
The dots that I connected immediately were Romulus and Remus triplets.
I don't know.
And and
Who,
and
who
and
knows about
no, no,
that?
no.
It's a
You
myth.
see where I'm getting at. And that popular mythology used wolves and dogs and pack animals, which again brings in that whole idea of collective security. Like I said, these are just the dots I connected. Could
Sure.
be, and you could bring Luke and Leia in there, but I think that's completely digressing. And with regards to that whole collective security, what's happening in Canada now? The truckers are forming a collective security. And what you were talking about
It's a competing collective. That's the thing.
right?
See, it's a competing collective between the institutional power that
Yep,
feels itself alienated and separate from the truckers, because they don't view the truckers as people like them.
yep,
They view the truckers as other, as
yep.
outsiders. So they have no problem uh, physically attacking them, taking their money, persecuting them. They have no problem whatsoever. It's
Well,
the exact same process by which any insider group attacks an outsider group. You see, because in my theory, when two collectives meet and they do not feel themselves to be a part of the same collective at all,
yep,
then they view each other as inhuman. It's like I said in the presentation, the way the Aztecs viewed all the other indigenous people, including the Spaniards. They viewed them as outsiders, as others, and so they had no problem in sacrificing them to the gods because they weren't even human beings. They were like no different from animals. I mean, you don't have much of a problem butchering a pig in order to eat the pig,
mm,
right? Or do whatever you want with a pig, or kill a cow so you can get its leather to make yourself a wallet, right? You don't have a problem with that at all. All right. Same thing. When you are part of a collective, you are firmly ensconced in a collective. You view the members of another collective as just not human. And so you have no problem going after them, persecuting, because you have no empathy for them.
yep.
You see? And the key issue of Christianity, which Christianity did that people don't understand, is that it it forced believers in Christianity to look at the other person as a human being with a soul. Now, it doesn't matter that you and I might not believe in Jesus being the Son of God and that there's a soul. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. What we think of Christianity is irrelevant. What matters is the actuality that Christianity made its adherents believe in the humanity of the other guy, and that the other guy had to be converted to Catholicism or Christianity to save his soul, even if you were white and European and the other guy was black and African or Asian and or whatever the fuck, you as a Christian viewed him as a soul that had to be saved. Christianity was the first religion that had this notion, by the way. Every other religion up until the advent of Christianity viewed other people as inhuman, not the same species as them. Okay. And some of these religions continue on to today and still have that mentality, by the way. And so what's
All
going on
over
here?
Asia.
Yeah. And so and in Europe and the Americas too, there are these religions that view people who are not adherents of their religion as less than human, okay, as cattle. And that's a fact. And so the issue becomes, see, Christianity was instrumental in creating this notion of this worldwide industrial collective. It was a stepping stone to it, okay? Because Christianity embraced the fact that other people could be part of the collective of the religion, you see? Because religions before were much more ethnic based. Christianity was the first that was, quote unquote, cosmopolitan, of embarking multiple racial groups that all believed the same creed. It was the first religion, or the first major religion, okay? And that's why Christianity was so important. But what's happened in this post Christian world, we're devolving to the previous state where we view other people of other collectives as not quite properly human. Christianity had the great virtue of viewing other people as human beings, misguided because they didn't believe in the Lord and Jesus and Mary and all that shit, but still human that could be saved, right? And that's why Christians went and proselytized. But in this post-Christian world, we are devolving. You see what I'm saying? And chat, do you guys see what I'm getting at? And it's very important that you understand that the end of Christianity is a disaster for human cohesion, universal cohesion, because Christianity was the first major stepping stone in going to a universal human collective. And this industrial collective that embraces almost the entire world, it's based on Christianity, not in the sense that Christianity is the global religion. No, Christianity created the notion that other people who are radically different from you are valuable human beings who deserve respect. This is a key
Humanized.
thing. Exactly. You see how important it is. And so
Absolutely.
it's something that non-believers, because I don't believe in Christianity. Okay. I mean, I was born Catholic, but I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Okay. I don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. I don't believe that he was resurrected. I just don't believe it. Okay. And I sometimes I regret the fact that I'm a non-believer, because I recognize the comfort that belief gives people. Okay. But even though I'm a non-believer, I understand the importance of Christianity and what it gave to humanity overall, and its disappearance, the loss of Christianity, the collapse of Christianity, is an actual disaster for our human civilization. It's not a good thing. It's
I
a bad
would
thing.
I would take it just the Ten Commandments. I
Well,
mean,
regardless
regardless of the fate.
that's not the issue. You're
Right.
missing the point. The
Okay.
point is not the 10 Commandments. The point is viewing other people, as human beings, because
Understood.
no other civilization did this. Remember the Aztecs. Anybody who was not an Aztec was a sacrificial victim, because they weren't people, they were animals. See?
Mm,
All of humanity has always thought the same. If you are not one of us, then you are expendable, disposable, and we're going to wipe you out.
right.
Christianity was the first major uh, um, uh, 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 creed or religion, or call it what you will, that forced its believers to consider the other person as a human being and respect them qua human being. Okay. And
Right.
that changed things radically. It allowed the people in Britain and the people in, say, Turkey, back in the Middle Ages, to treat each other and not want to kill each other instantly. Okay, because that's what they were doing before Christianity. But now with Christianity, or look at the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire survived because basically it killed everybody who opposed them. The only people who survived were those who acquiesced to Rome. Rome just didn't like anybody, and the Roman citizen was superior to everybody else. Okay, but it was Christianity that changed that. Okay, and it's so
Yep.
important to understand this. And now that there's no Christianity, now we're seeing it in Canada. In Canada, you're seeing the leadership class that is completely alienated from the truckers. And what are they doing? Persecuting them. And that's
They
what's going
locked
on.
up the priests first.
Yeah, man, that was fucking horrible. I saw that fucking video, man, when they arrested that Polish priest. That was fucking
You're
awful.
frozen. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'm frozen. Okay, but anyway, anything else on your mind, man?
Just when you write that book, please save me a signed copy. I'll go and pick it up
Sure.
at some point.
No, I'm going to release it for free. I've
Good
made
night.
up my mind that I'm going to just release it so that. Oh, Chris, I already had
Okay.
you on. Sorry. Hang on, I'm going to kick you out. No, I'm going to release it for. I'm going to release ethics for free. The nonfiction stuff, I've made up my mind that I'm going to just post it to, because I realize it's a book of philosophy, so nobody's going to fucking pay me any fucking money. And so it'll have a greater impact if I just release it for free, because people who see it that's for free they'll say, okay, I'll take a read at it. But if they have to pay even $5, even $2, people aren't going to do it, because who the fuck wants to read a philosophy book? No, fucking nobody, right? And so I'm not going to make any money off the fucking thing. I mean, no matter no matter how I work it out, and it's not going to make me any money whatsoever. So why would I limit its exposure just in order
Okay.
to earn, okay, look, suppose I sell 1,000 copies at say $5 a pop. That's $5,000. Will it change my life in any meaningful way? No. But if I give it away for free, instead of 1,000 copies, maybe it's going to be 10,000 copies. It'll have a more impact because of it. So impact is more important than money insofar as this book is concerned. Yeah, so it's going to go out for free, but I'll happily sign it for you. Sure.
All good.
So anyway,
there you go. I'll find a way to go and meet you. Anyways,
yeah.
I'm off, sir. Man. Have a good night.
Take it and have a good time in Phuket, man. Motherfucker, that's nice. How's the weather there, by the way?
Yeah.
Good weather? Oh,
30 degrees right now.
Nice. Okay, take it easy, man. Hey, who's this? This is Hey Coach. Who is this, by the way?
Hello?
Yeah, hi. I'm not going to say Hey Coach. Change your name, man. Don't do that again. Okay, so what's on your mind? And what's your actual name so I can refer to you by an actual name? It doesn't matter if it's a made-up name, but I don't want to call you Hey Coach. That's stupid.
Bonnie.
Ani. Okay, good. What's on your mind, man?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, I've been watching your channel for around 1.5 years, and it's really, really nice to talk to you because
it's a pleasure. Yeah, this is the first time we've interacted, right?
Yes, first time, and I've subscribed to Patreon as well. Pretty much just to interact with you.
Sure. What's on your mind, man?
Yeah, so I have some questions written down. So like one of the things is, so I watched your video about like a first date, and then I think you were saying someone was a smart guy bringing someone to a petting zoo, or like your intern like girlfriend. So how?
Oh yeah, like taking her to something where she feels a visceral emotion, like a petting zoo or something where it's an activity that she feels a strong emotion. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, not taking her to fucking dinner or talking to her incessantly. I mean, that's boring. I mean, think of it from her point of view. You're a girl, and some guy takes you out and starts talking to you about his fucking hobbies, about his fucking record collection, some shit like that. You're gonna be bored to tears. But a guy takes you out to like a petting zoo where you get to like snuggle up with a bunny and have like an owl perch on your wrist. That's fucking cool. It's memorable. It's a lot more fun, and it's probably going to be cheaper for the guy too. So do that. Yeah, that was definitely one of my suggestions. Yeah, what's on your mind about that?
Right. So my question would be, what kind of specific things to talk about, right? Like let's say I do bring her there.
Ask her about herself.
What if it kind of like falls flat? Let's say I ask her like she's in school right now, and then I say, how's school? What courses are you taking? What major?
Oh, fuck that. Nobody cares about that.
No,
ask her, who's the biggest douchebag of your professors? See? Because what you want her to talk to you about is her emotions. That's what she wants to talk about. Okay? And give your audience what they want, right? That's a famous vaudeville line, right? So if your audience, i.e. this girl, what the fuck does a girl want to talk to you about? Her fucking feelings. And what's the strongest feeling that she's going to have? Antipathy. Yeah, it's the most intense feeling, of course. So you ask her, oh, so you're in school? Oh, so tell me about the biggest douchebag teacher you've got, and why is he a douchebag? Well, she'll talk to you for fucking hours, because of course she's going to have some douchebag teacher.
What if she just says something like, oh, I feel like my professors are pretty nice. How do you go from there?
Well, then you have to look for a topic that elicits an emotional reaction from her. Okay? Like ask her who's hassling her, who's annoying, ask her about the creepy guy in her class who's like, mentally undressing her. I mean, like, try to steer the conversation towards some topic where she is going to have strong feelings about it. See? I mean, like, okay, you're a guy, right? I mean, and I'm talking to you. What am I going to talk to you about? I'm going to talk to you about, like, say, if you have a strong emotions about, say, football, okay? And, I ask you, and I know the answer, of course. And I ask you, how did the Seattle Mariners do today, this year or season or whatever? And you're a fan of them. And you're like, oh, man, they did like shit. The coach is an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to talk for like forever about the Seattle Mariners if you're a fan of them or something, because it's something that emotionally, you have some investment in. It's a big deal for you. Right? You see what I'm saying? You have to
Right.
do the same thing with a woman.
Right.
Especially with a woman, because men tend to be more interested in ideas and objects, but women are interested in feelings, their subjective feelings especially. And so you ask them about them. And you constantly probe to see what gives her an emotional reaction. It could be positive or negative. Okay, for instance, recently I was talking to a woman, and she had like a beta orbiter. Okay. And I was telling her it was a beta orbiter. And I told her, you should cut him loose because, I mean, poor bastard, right? And she did cut him loose. And what happened was that the beta orbiter had like a meltdown and started just like really being just kind of crazy. And she found it funny. Okay. I mean, she found it kind of like embarrassing, but it made her laugh. Probably because it was both funny and embarrassing, but the embarrassment in her case expressed itself as laughter. And so she started talking on and on about how crazy this beta orbiter went after she decided, and she told him that she just didn't want to see him anymore because she saw no future with him. And he just started saying, well, we can be friends, and getting desperate and getting all pathetic, right? And she found it funny. And the more he tried to make her take back her decision to cut him loose, the more ridiculous he came across, and the more he made her laugh. And so I asked her about that. And for like half an hour, she was just giggling and laughing about the whole thing and feeling sorry for the guy, but also embarrassed, and just, because it was a funny situation. It elicited a strong emotional reaction.
But
See?
there's this feeling that I have that it's almost, I feel like when you're asking someone like what you said, I found to be really true, is that guys tend to care more about ideas. And I think
Sure.
especially for me, I feel like it's almost disingenuous to ask about things that I don't really care about, and I'd prefer to much talk about like intellectual topics. So
Yeah,
how
but I mean,
how do I get
who are
over
you
that
trying
feeling?
to please here? I mean, what's your objective? Think of it rationally. What's your objective?
I mean, objectively, if I just did not care about any like morals, I'd just ask her probing questions, make her emotional.
Wait, no. I mean, fuck moral principles and shit like that. That's totally besides the point. What is your objective? Your objective is to secure a mate. That's the point, right? I mean, how old are you, by the way?
22.
Okay. Your objective is to secure a mate. At this age, really, your objective is to interact with females so that you start to understand what you prefer in a female for a long-term relationship. You are trying out girls to gain the experience so that when you're like 26, 28, 30, or perhaps a little older, you will know more or less what kind of woman you want in your life for a long-term mate. At this point in time, you are trying out different girls, but you actually have to have a relationship with them, see? And so your objective is to have relationships with girls, and therefore you have to make yourself attractive to them. You have to look at this like a math problem, okay? I mean, if you're like, oh, if I have morals, and blah blah blah, you're gonna fuck it up, okay? I mean, fuck morals in the very literal sense. You fuck them. Your objective is practical. You need to gain the practical experience to know what girl is good for you long term, and so
So
you have to try out different girls. That's your goal. See?
what would be some practical ways to meet people given the conditions that
That's a $1
they're-
million question, quite frankly. I
it's
mean, right
like,
now,
there's some
yeah.
conditions, right? Like that I'm not vaccinated, so that has a lot of challenges with not being able to go to restaurants, bars, movies, entertainment places. I'm not in school. I'm working alone, self-employed. No existing social group. These conditions, how would you concretely?
Yeah, that's hard, and I'm not I don't have a silver bullet answer. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
Now, one way to go is, let's see, irrespective of whether you're religious or not, there are a lot of religious groups that are anti-vax because uh, they think or know or believe that the vaccine uses embryo material and stuff like that, and they're very anti-vaccine. Okay. Well, what you're going to have to do is first find groups of people who are anti-vax, and religious groups. In there, you can find a lot. And if you are not religious or don't believe in religion, you're going to have to basically keep that thought to yourself. Okay. And of course, you don't have to actively lie. You can lie by omission. Okay. And, a fine distinction perhaps, but fine. I mean, you have to look at the fact of what your objective is. And if you are presented with great obstacles, you're just going to have to be, as they say, morally flexible. Okay. And if that means allowing people to infer something that is not true about you, well, you let them. Okay. Because, I mean, yeah, it's as simple as that. Look, this is reproduction we're talking about. Okay. And at the end of the day, any kind of moral scruples are secondary to the reality of you have to succeed evolutionarily. You have to survive and you have to procreate. And everything else is tertiary to those two objectives. Okay.
Would you happen
And
to have any like concrete places, like one or two, just places
like any religious group. Okay. Any religious group,
outside of
automatically there are going to be other religious people who feel very strongly about this. And are you in a blue state or a red state?
I'm actually in Canada.
Oh, okay. Well, Jesus Christ, man, you're fucking fucked right now. I mean, Canada, Jesus, you can't even fucking leave Canada without being vaccinated, Have you looked into the possibility of slipping across the border illegally?
I'm not really interested in that right now.
Well, you should look into it. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying, find out, just in case. But anyway,
Yeah, so like outside of religious groups, is there like could you provide maybe just like one more place that
I don't know. What do you think?
I heard your suggestion about museums, but it seems like it's just there's a lot of older women that are there. Doesn't
Well, there's something else too. When you're 22 and you have no intention of marrying anybody, test driving an older woman is to your advantage. Okay. See, like a long-term relationship with an older woman, like for real, for serious, no, never. Okay. But a short to medium term relationship with an older woman, like an exploratory thing, definitely. It adds to your repertoire, if you will. It adds to your experience. It's worthwhile. And so you're saying, well, in a museum, they're only going to be older women. Well, and they will be sexually available. They will teach you a lot. You will have a very good experience. And yeah, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Yeah, I had my experiences with older women back in the day. And it was retrospectively a very good thing because it taught me a lot. And so don't think, oh, they're older. And if you're thinking like Macron of like fucking marrying your high school teacher, then I'd say you're a fucking idiot, right? But if you're 22 and you're dating some woman who's 32, 37, 40 even, right? But you keep in the forefront of your mind that this is not your forever woman. This is a woman that you're going to have a relationship with, and it'll be very illuminating and fun and all the rest of it, but it does not have a future because you're not going to have children with this woman. Then yeah, sure, go ahead. So long as you always keep in mind that it's not going to be forever. Okay. I mean, if you keep that in mind and not allow yourself to fall in love, but allow yourself to have a good time and a time where you will grow and experience a lot, then definitely. No, I'm dead serious about this. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you have to understand the period in your life that you are living. If you are 22, your goal is to acquire experience. Okay? It's to acquire experience so that your later version will have the self-confidence to make the right decisions. Your later version, the version of who you are at 30, at 35, will say, oh, this woman, she's great, but she has these qualities that back when I was 22, I dated some girl who had similar qualities and it didn't work out. So, this girl ain't for me. But this other girl, your 35-year-old self will say, who has these superficially bad qualities, but has these other qualities that make me realize that she will be very good for me, because back in the day when I was 22 or 23 or 24, I dated some chick who was sort of like this, and I realized the value of these qualities. You see my point, okay? And so don't close the door. Just because some chick is old doesn't mean that you can't get a lot out of a relationship with her, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, but to go back to your question, and it's a valid question. The times today are so incredibly difficult because of COVID, because of all these stupid lockdowns and restrictions and whatnot. And I understand your dilemma. And I wish I had a magic bullet. I mean, I of course I wish I could tell you, go here, here, and here, and you're done. Of course I wish I'd do that. I'd fucking put it in a jar and sell it, for crying out loud. If I had the solution lickety split, of course I would, right? But unfortunately, there isn't, and that's a hard reality. I think that you're just going to have to go to places where people meet. Okay. And by the way, see, the problem that you're experiencing, tons of people are experiencing. And I think that it's going to be the fuel for a lot of the fuel for an explosion, quite frankly. Okay. And I think that Canada is inching closer and closer to that explosion, because there are so many men like you, and not just men, women too, who feel so isolated, so alone. And so it's inevitable that this explosion is going to happen. And the leadership classes are fucking morons. Okay. They are not smart people. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And they don't realize that keeping people down, isolated like this, inevitably will lead to an explosion, and anything can happen in that situation. Okay. So yeah, I just want to tell you that. And so don't feel bad. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Anything else on your mind? Tell me.
I guess, well, there was one more thing, but
Go ahead.
yeah, it was more so regarding like a response to your videos on work. So I think you said there's 3 ways to make money.
Yeah.
essentially,
Sell
and-
your time, sell other people's time, or acquire something or create something that you can later sell at a greater price. Yeah. Those are the 3 ways.
yeah, so I definitely wouldn't want to sell my time because that's not scalable. But
Yeah, exactly.
so in today's environment, could you give some like advice on things to look into?
No, that you're on your own on that, man. I mean, I wouldn't know. Okay. I mean, there are different places, and different situations in different places, different circumstances, different opportunities. You got to keep your eyes peeled for where you are, both geographically and in terms of the online world, if you will, because the online world is becoming just as valuable as the real world in terms of money making opportunities. But you're on your own. I can't, because I wouldn't know. I mean, it's different for every person in every circumstance, and you have different qualities that I don't have, and I have qualities that you don't have, and so it's not one size fits all. Okay,
It's too
I can
broad.
only I can only tell you, like in this case, I said that there are 3 ways to make money. One is to sell your time. One is to sell the time of others, i.e., create a corporation that produces something, and the third is to acquire something or create something and then later sell it at a higher price. Okay. And so, like in my own case, when I was in college, I worked as a dishwasher. I was selling my time. Then when I finished college, I went to Hollywood to work as a screenwriter. I was writing stuff, making stuff up, creating something out of nothing, and selling that, i.e., acquiring something some piece of writing and then selling that at a higher value, right? And then later, when I had a film production company, I hired a bunch of different people to do different tasks in film production. And that combination of all their time, I sold that, right? And by way of all their time being put into a production and that production making money later on. But those are 3 examples, but it's different for each person, and you got to figure it out on your own. That's nobody can tell you that. You got to figure it out on your own. You see?
Hmm.
And if anybody says that they can solve this problem for you, know that they're lying. Know automatically that they're lying, that they're selling you some bullshit, okay? Because this is the part where each individual man has to figure it out on his own. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Take it easy, man. Oh, where did the other guy go? I had a third party here and he just disappeared. Okay. Let me bring on Robert. Robert, you there? Hello?
Hey, Coach,
Hello,
can you hear
Robert.
me? Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. What's on your mind, man?
Hey, Coach, good to talk to you. It's been some time.
Yeah. How long?
Oh, it's been probably 6 months plus. I'm that public health grad student you talked to a while back.
Yeah. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good, doing good. Yeah, normally I'm fighting Sunday mornings, so I'm normally boxing in the ring. So I usually miss these live sessions. So it's good to catch you.
Good to get you too, man. What's on your
Yeah.
mind?
Well, no, I think your point was interesting, and I think amongst many of the people I follow for either philosophy or just discussion about these things, one thing I noticed is that there's a lot more of discussion about basic evolutionary anthropology principles.
Yeah.
I was an anthropology major in college, so this is all stuff that it was pretty basic stuff I learned pretty early on. But it's interesting to see it being brought up, especially kind of like thinking the tribal sense. I think the specific term is evolutionary environment. It's kind of like thinking about things in terms of the evolutionary environment, in terms of
Sure.
throwing it back to when we were caveman, tribal,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and thinking about the interactions and why people are the way they are.
Yeah.
But it's all interesting because I think there's almost this collective gestalt or collective
Well, what's
awakening.
going on is that academia has decided not to help people figure out the world. That's
Yeah.
basically what's going on. And so you have random people like myself and other YouTube personalities trying to figure this shit out because we ourselves are curious about it. And we realize that there's, frankly, a market for it. Other people are interested in too. I mean, how many people are watching me? 56 people. Okay. And I rambled on about all this shit. Well, there are people who are interested in this and they're paying attention. And I noticed that they pay attention by the comments, right? And some of the videos I've done, like the one that was 5 hours of me being a dictator, right? Fuckers will listen to that whole shit for all 5 fucking hours of the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
was a good one, by the way.
well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. But like what happens is that my point is that, see, people are interested in this, and academia, the establishment intellectual organizations are not delivering on these needs that people have insofar as understanding the world. They're just creating. There's a very interesting book by Hermann Hesse called The Glass Bead Game. And academia is creating a glass bead game. And what does it mean? The metaphor in the novel, in the title, the glass bead game in the book is this mental game. I mean, this the academic game where it involves history, and it's never really properly described, but it's this very intellectual and complex game that ultimately is pointless and that doesn't add any meaning to people's lives. It's just a game, and it doesn't actually teach people about the truth of reality. And it's about this man called Joseph Necht who becomes a master at the glass bead game, and he becomes so good at it that he realizes that it's pointless, that he realizes it's bullshit, and that academia, because it's really a metaphor about academia, about university system, is basically a glass bead game that it teaches you a very complex and convoluted game that adds nothing to people's lives. That's the whole point of the Hermann Hesse novel. And It's very accurate. The academia has become a glass bead game that very complex and sophisticated, but it adds nothing to people's lives. And so people are looking for meaning to existence, looking to understand reality. And since
Mhm.
they're not finding it in academia, here you have me. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think
anyway,
it's just interesting that you're seeing this kind of all at the same time. And going back to your, I guess, more relevant to the specific topic.
also, there's something else going on, if
Yeah,
you don't mind my saying and
go ahead.
interrupting you, that we're in a period of transition, and academia is not explaining what the fuck is going on. And so
Mm,
people want to know what the fuck is going on. Why is the whole fucking thing collapsing?
mhm,
And my personal, it's twofold. It's a very complex explanation on the one hand, processes going back to the 1960s and what I mentioned about the civil rights movement and how everybody's a victim and all the rest of it, and the column of resentful people, blah, blah. There's
mhm,
that part. And the simple explanation is that, all empires, all great empires decay. They decay because they're too rich, they overextend themselves, and they go down the tubes. It's happened to every empire in the past, and it's happening now with the American empire.
mhm.
It's people want to understand that, and so yeah, this is really this is fucking fascinating. I mean, regardless of how scary the times are and how miserable people are and how impoverished and inflation and all this bullshit and the collapse of the democracies and the tyranny that's happening in Canada and Australia and New Zealand that's soon enough going to hit the United States. I mean, I would be very surprised if there's a 2024 election, to tell you the truth. I'm not kidding. Okay. I'd be very surprised. I think that the 2022 midterms are going to be incredibly crooked and everybody's going to know it, but nobody's going to do shit. And I think that the 2024 election,
Yeah.
people are going to start protesting and they're going to call it off somehow. Somehow they're going to figure out a way to not have the elections in 2024 and just say, okay, Hillary is president and that's it, and no election. It's going to be something like that. I mean, I would bet on it. Okay, I mean, I'd bet real money on it. I'd bet like right now, I'd bet 20% of my net worth that there is no election in 2024. That's how strongly I believe it at this time. I mean, think of it. I'm willing to bet a fifth of my net worth right now that there will be no 2024 election. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking severe, right? And
Uh,
so anyway,
you're putting your
the
money
point,
where your mouth is.
yeah, well, but the point is that I'm trying to make is that, see, we all recognize that we are in radical times. This is not like the 1970s or the 80s or the 90s or even the 2000s where things were like trundling along. No, this is cataclysmic. And everybody feels that there's something in the air, that there's something coming, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people are talking about this bullshit that on February 22nd, it'll be the day that Pluto is in the exact same position as when it was on July 4th, 1776, right?
Mhm.
The 248 year or however many years, cycle or whatever bullshit, right? People are talking about this shit and taking it seriously because we all at a animal level, at a visceral level, at something in our balls and in our bellies and our chests, we feel that something big is coming. And because something big is coming, the whole fucking thing is collapsing, It's fucking
Mhm.
wild, man. I mean, like, it's scary and all the rest of it, but it's still fucking cool. In 2010, I was in a fucking earthquake, an 8.8 earthquake, motherfucker. And
It
I
was
was on the 15th floor of my building.
15th
That,
floor. Oh God.
dude, man, I was scared shitless. I was sure that my building was going to collapse, but at the same time, it was one of the most exciting, thrilling moments of my life. I've never felt so alive as when that was happening. When my building was like swinging from side to side, it was swinging so far up that I couldn't get on my feet. I kept falling over onto my bed because I was in my bedroom. And when the earthquakes happened, I got out of bed and tried to stand up right next to my bed, but I kept getting thrown onto the bed as the whole fucking thing moved over. And it moved roughly about 1.80 meters, almost not quite 2 meters from side to side, man. I could feel everything in my apartment falling out of the cabinets, my
Mhm.
bookshelves all collapsing, my TV just rolling around. I had one of these big projection TV screens, the big boxes. This was before flat screens, right?
Oh,
It was
that's old
all
school.
yeah, it was just fantastic. I was scared shitless, right? But it was so fucking cool. That's my mentality to these disasters, and I can feel it. I can feel it's happening right the fuck now. That's why I'm like a news junkie at this point, just following every fucking piece of news that I can lay my hands on, because this shit, we're gonna be talking about this for decades afterwards. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty obvious. There's something coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
there's so many books I've read. A couple of recommendations. Joseph Tainter is an anthropologist, archaeologist, actually, kind of studied the collapse of how societies collapse, and it's pretty obvious that's where we're headed. I think
yeah,
that's something that it's been obvious for a while.
yeah.
Another report I liked particularly was a Club of Rome report. I don't know if you've heard about them, but
No.
basically, the Club of Rome is a think tank. I believe they're a Swiss think tank. They essentially made a model based off of various factors.
What's it called? Cult of Rome?
Club,
Oh,
like a
Club
club
of
soda, like
yeah.
Club of Rome.
Club of Rome, Rome of Italy, Rome.
Yeah, Club of Rome, like Italy. They
Okay.
it's a Swiss. It was like a think tank, and they actually kind of came together. I think it all really comes down to limits of growth and economics, and how we essentially have a system, an economic system that is based off of perpetual growth in a finite world, and it's doing some data analysis on that.
I understand that model. I don't agree with it. Okay. I don't agree with it. I mean, theoretically, they're right. There is a limit to how much you can grow. But I don't think that that's the reason that we're collapsing. Okay. I think it's different from that. I actually think that John Calhoun's Mouse Utopia, even though he came to the wrong conclusions, but that sort of like shows what's going on, because what I think it is the lack of stressors on people's lives. Because I think that people need visceral stress on their lives in order to feel happy and content. But when you have everything is too easy, because I think that's the problem, everything is fundamentally too easy, and people start going insane. I think that that's what's going on. I mean, you can see all these like left-wing people, right? They have incredibly easy lives, and they're freaking out and going on about racism, about patriarchy, about privilege, and all kinds of bullshit. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You got it easier than anybody. And I think that that's precisely the issue. In Calhoun's Mouse Utopia, which I suggest everybody who's listening go check it out. It's on Wikipedia. It's a very famous experiment. It's actually a series of experiments. And what it is there was this behavioral scientist called John Calhoun who set up this cage for mice. And he wanted to prove the Malthusian proposition that with enough food, the population would kill each other once they hit like a ceiling of growth, which is parallel to what you're talking about, which is that perpetual growth will eventually hit a ceiling. But what happened in all of Calhoun's Mice Utopia is that he built these cages that were utopias for mice, because it had food, it had shelter, of course, no predators, water, and it had all the bedding supplies necessary to build nests. And so Calhoun put in like say like a couple of dozen mice at first, and in a very large enclosure. It was he did it over repetitively. He did basically the same experiment, I think like 49 times, if memory serves me. I could be wrong, but it was like that number of times. It was a bunch of times, and they were essentially the same experiment. These enclosures that were like perfect mice utopia, perfect temperature, perfect everything. And he watched as the mouse population would grow, but it never hit the ceiling of each enclosure. It would grow, and then long before it hit the maximum number that the enclosure could hold, the mouse utopia started to decline in number of population until eventually got wiped out. And he came up with a whole host of different theories as to why this happened. But to my thinking, the answer was obvious. It's that the mice didn't have any stress, any real stress of predators or the possibility of hunger. And I always think of Nicholas Nassim Taleb's notion of anti-fragility.
Yes.
That a system becomes stronger the more you stress it. like the bones on the human body.
Yeah.
If a bone is never stressed, it's brittle and it can break easily. But if it's constantly being stressed with weight, then it becomes much stronger. And I think that that's essentially the problem with our society. We lack stresses, and so we become fragile and brittle and
Yeah.
subject to being shattered by the first crisis. And I think that that's what's happening. I'm sorry for having talked over you for so
No,
long.
no, it's fine. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned. I was going to bring up that experiment, anyways, because you're seeing within the mouse experiment, you're seeing the development of beautiful ones, and you're seeing
Yeah.
basically a corollary here.
Yeah.
We're seeing that corollary with the hikikomori. You're also seeing the female mice. The mothers, they became much more aggressive and
they ate the children.
territorial, and they ate the children. Yeah. So I think there's some things there that can be applied to humans. It's obviously not a one-to-one.
Oh no.
But we are basically still mammals, and the some of the underlying principles. And one interesting thing I always found about studying anthropology, or just studying kind of like the basis of the human brain, consciousness, neuroscience, whatever, is kind of this, broadly speaking, that you think is that really your frontal cortex is you. It's your emotions, it's your loves, it's your everything that you would associate with you being you. But there's other parts of your brain that are much older, and there's antiquity parts, and you don't have as much control over your own thought processes, your own emotional states, and everything as much as you'd like. And it's one of those quirks about biology that about humans, that we like to think we have control. We really don't have as much control over our own thought processes as we would like to admit, because we are still animals at the end of the day, just very, very smart animals.
Well, we're smart enough to be able to fool ourselves,
which is often not to our own detriment.
Well, no, sometimes it is to our benefit sometimes when we fool ourselves. I mean, how can I put it? I mean, I completely agree. We are animals, and we constantly forget that and assume that we are these weird, like, beings of light and spirit or some bullshit like that. We're no different from fucking cockroaches and dolphins and poodles, for crying out loud, you
Yeah.
know? And we are loath to admit it. Now, do you know anything about dogs? I mean, you know that there are different breeds of dogs, right?
Yeah.
And these breeds, they've only come around over the last 200-300 years. I mean, go back 500 years and they're completely different. I mean, there were dogs, right? But the breeds of today, Chihuahuas, bulldogs, whatever, they're a recent thing, and they are a human invention, if you will.
Mhm.
And it's very obvious that there are different dog breeds, and they have radically different temperaments. And we have some dogs that are like pit bulls, that are very aggressive and potentially very dangerous. And then we have other dogs like St. Bernards, who are just easygoing. They're very big, very strong, but easygoing. And they're just relaxed, and you can leave a baby around them and the baby will be perfectly fine, right? Um, the notion that this is perfectly acceptable among to think about dogs, that different dog breeds are going to act a certain way, but not realize that more or less the same thing happens with people. And it's not just like races of people, but there are like subgroups within the same race
Yeah.
that have radically different temperaments and radically different mentalities. And that a lot of times these mentalities coalesce around different occupations.
Mhm.
And the notion that that isn't true, people deny it. It's just absurd. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's something that you can't. I mean, that's
You
something
can't say.
I've thought of myself, but oh God, I would never be caught dead saying that, like, publicly. Like, that's just
No,
the
that's
social
begging
consequences
for
of it too.
crucifixion,
Yeah,
man.
seriously, dude.
And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like virtual crucifixion or social crucifixion. I'm talking about actual crucifixion,
Oh yeah.
motherfucker. They
There-
grab you and nail you to the cross and put you on fucking I-95. You know what I'm saying?
Fuck yeah,
Look at
dude.
this racist. That's what
Yeah,
they yell.
but I
But it's
mean,
the
it's
truth.
it's self-evident if you just have the basics of observation skills, and there's some. That's the other thing. There is people who say, "Oh, there's no data for that." Well, it's because we haven't allowed the data. I believe that there were some genetic studies back in the day, but nothing recent, because the academia is
Well,
not, as you mentioned earlier, it's not a good platform
no,
for that.
no,
But yeah, I
like
mean,
like
it's
like for instance, I can tell you something that I learned from a veterinarian. A veterinarian friend of mine told me that dogs that have not had pups, they have a far higher incidence of breast cancer. I mean, far higher, and it's proven in studies and all kinds of things. And I asked, well, what about women then? And she said, and she laughed, and she said, oh, they don't do those studies because they don't want to see the answers. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's really fucking interesting.
Yeah,
And
it's,
it's true, by the way.
the birth
They,
control too. The birth we
yeah,
we
oh
putting
yeah,
these young girls on birth control, and we don't really know the long term effects. It's only been around since the '60s. Like the effects
yeah,
that it's had. I mean, really. I mean, there's this guy. I think Raul Tomasi. I think one of your earlier guys mentioned it, and he's like kind of red pill dude, but
oh, yeah,
he goes
yeah,
by basically saying like one of the most significant inventions
yeah,
of the 20th century was the birth control, because it radically changed our society. It
yes,
radically changed how the sexes interact and how all these things go.
yeah.
But these are all questions that I'd love to maybe let's find out. Maybe you don't have to do some studies, but these are questions that are kind of verboten.
That's never gonna happen. Never, never, never gonna happen. I mean, they just, and that's a shame because these are the really important questions of our time. And what'll happen is that, see, random guys like me in some obscure corner of the internet might answer them or throw out an answer, and nobody will hear about it for years, and perhaps ever, But how can I put it? These essential truths or essential issues of our time are not being discussed by anybody. The mainstream of our society is deliberately chosen to ignore these questions. And so the only people who are going to be asking them and trying to answer them in any kind of intelligent way are just random people like myself, like other people who are commenting like us on the internet, until we
Yeah.
get canceled. Okay. So long as we stay small enough and insignificant enough, then we won't get canceled. Then we'll be able to talk about this shit.
Well,
Okay.
I think it's also part of why our society is collapsing is because we're ignoring these obvious things that we really should be talking about. We should be having conversations. We should be
Well,
talking.
it's not that we're ignoring them. We're afraid of them.
Mm.
That's actually worse. Okay.
Yeah.
See, a society that ignores a question because they figure, it's inconsequential. But no, this is fear. See, the whole cancel culture, it's a culture of fear. You have to understand that. It's fear as to what are the answers to these questions. See,
Yeah.
you don't cancel somebody if you're indifferent. You cancel somebody when you're afraid. Of course, So that's what's going on, because fundamentally people know the answers. That's the thing.
Deep
That's
down,
the real
everybody
issue.
knows. Everybody
Yeah,
knows.
we know. Okay, but we just can't face the truth. We're afraid of it,
Yeah.
and that's a tragedy. Yeah.
And we can't face the truth. I mean, it's gonna. I think it's Ayn Rand. You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that writ large. I mean, I think you're totally right about the West. I mean, we're fucked. Going back to anti-fragility, Los Angeles, I went to school there, did undergrad there, doing grad school there. But I'm like, I would look around and I'm like,
What grad school? What did you study there?
So I did undergrad at one of the big public schools in
No,
LA.
it's fine. But what subject?
So I did undergrad was anthropology, kind of
Uh-huh.
like pre-med stuff, and then currently in grad school I'm doing epidemiology.
Oh, yeah. Well, so tell us, tell us all, is the vaccine giving us AIDS? And is Bill Gates giving up the ghost on vaccines when he
Oh yeah,
acknowledges that
yeah.
Omicron is a better vaccination than the vaccine?
Seems like natural immunity. There's been some studies to indicate that natural immunity is superior.
Shocker!
Yeah,
Shocker!
shocker, right? But also the long-term data just isn't there. I think the only honest answer about the vaccines is that we just don't know. The clinical, like some of the Pfizer, I believe
No, it's all kinds of bullshit.
phase three clinical trials aren't going to be done for another year or two. Phase 4 is going to take years. We're just not going to know.
Yeah,
The
and
best bet is
the other
that
thing,
we'll be okay.
is it true that the mortality rate is really beyond it's increased beyond what would be expected?
Within certain populations, yes. I believe in certain countries, especially like the 20 to 49, there is an increased mortality.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the whole why are we not asking these questions? You're never going to find any. You're never going to get any hard answers. The data is being it's just not there.
Massaged. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
not even being massaged. It's just being fucking ignored. Like nobody's actually doing the data. Nobody's actually doing the like deep dive into this. Nobody's like we have a. It's called VAERS. It's like a vaccine
yeah.
adverse. And nobody's filling it out.
Yeah.
It's just
No, well, actually, the system is designed so it takes you over an hour to fill it out, and
yeah,
sometimes you spend all that time, and it sort of like doesn't accept it. It's
yeah,
deliberately designed. It's a feature, not a bug. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
actually worked a little bit with VAERS before. Yeah, it's not
yeah.
fun.
So my thinking is that you know they're starting to push this notion that getting myocarditis is perfectly normal. You know, and dude, you know, until last year, I hadn't even fucking heard of myocarditis. Okay. And now they're saying that's perfectly normal that a bunch of 15-year-olds get it. What the fuck are you
Yeah,
talking
that's not
about,
normal.
man? Yeah. So yeah, I think that I think we're look, I think we're fucked. Also, I personally, I know two women who have uterine cancer, and one of them just got a hysterectomy, a full hysterectomy. She's 29 years old.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, and she was vaccinated with Pfizer, both of them actually. And the other one is a Dutch woman, and she's fighting this thing with chemo and shit like that because she wants to have a baby, and it's kind of like insane because she's got uterine cancer and she's on chemo. You know, her body's going to be ravaged. She's not going to be able to have a child, but she's insistent that she's going to have a child and all the rest of it. But the thing is, this is in the Netherlands and in Chile, and I don't see these people, right? But actually, here in Ukraine, I've noticed a couple of people. There are very few people who are vaccinated here in my area. I mean,
Mhm.
roughly 10% of the population, if that. Uh, and because a lot of people decided no vaccination, I'll just buy a vaccine certificate.
Yeah.
But a couple of people I know personally, and I know them well, and they got the vaccine. In both cases, Pfizer, as a matter of fact. They're getting sick. I mean, really sick. Okay. And it's been like a number of months since they got it. But like one of these people, a woman, 23 years old, healthy, and all of a sudden she's been consistently under the weather, like immunocompromised. And recently her period stopped.
Mm.
And at first she thought pregnancy or some shit like that. And no, it just stopped. And perfectly healthy, okay? And no drugs, no nothing, just the vaccine. That's the only medication she's taken. And you know, you can see it on her face. Like she looks sick, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can spot somebody, just look at them across the room and you're like, oh, that person is not 100%. Just as, like, for instance, you know, a woman who's ovulating, everybody's like, oh, she looks good today, you know. And you're like, how does she look good? But everybody knows that she's, you know, she looks good. And you know, some of us who are more sophisticated or more, you know, honest say, oh yeah, she's ovulating, that's why she looks good, that's why she looks particularly sexy today. And you can tell that when somebody's sick, that there's something wrong, you know. And
Yeah.
this girl, she looks wrong, like there's something fucked up,
Yeah.
you know. And it's actually been sort of shocking. And I'm asking you if you have noticed that in the people around you.
Well, I mean, again, I live in LA, so I also work in healthcare, so I didn't have a choice. I had to get the vaccine to continue to work and whatnot. So I guess I did have a choice, and I just chose to get it. So it's on me.
Okay.
Uh, Honestly, no. I'm going to be honest. I haven't noticed. I haven't noticed too much.
Or do you
Here and
not want
there.
to notice?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I'm not sure if it's that I haven't been paying attention or is that I just haven't noticed. I did notice that, you know, some people I'm close to, they did have a little bit more problems. Um,
Like what kind of problems?
my mom actually she got vaccinated. She developed like some arrhythmia, basically heart arrhythmia, and
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going a little bit faster. Had to be put on a very mild dose of beta blockers for a time. But yeah, I don't know. I'm also hesitant to kind of like draw any conclusions. I don't know if this is my own personal bias or if it's just me trying to be cautious. I don't know. I haven't personally noticed too much. People are different. People are different. I don't know if that's through the vaccine.
How so?
More terse.
More terse.
Yeah, like, it's LA. People are assholes anyways, right?
All right. Yeah, I lived in LA, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, and they're assholes, and they're a little bit more asshole-ish. I can't tell if it's the. I can't tell. There's something off. There's something off with people. I don't know if it's the vaccine. I don't know if it's the stress from the economy. I don't know if it's the just everybody's tired. It's been 2 years of this shit, and everybody's just fucking tired and done. But I've been seeing like I go out to the bars or like just go out. I see a lot more fights. See a lot more
Really?
fights. Yeah. I'm a big dude, and I fought before, so like it's not a problem for me. But I just keep noticing it. And I'm like,
I mean, have you gotten involved in fights?
I stepped in to like break one up recently,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
but
well, that doesn't
I
count.
don't.
But I mean,
I know.
I mean, like
I don't.
that somebody was aggressive with you, or you were aggressive with somebody else.
I know. I don't be aggressive with people because I could actually kill them. But
Okay, fair enough. I mean, how big are you, by the way?
about 6'4", 260, former fighter in college. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't like your mother. What are you gonna say about that? But yeah. Okay. So people
Yeah, it's
don't
just.
fuck with you. Yeah, sure.
I mean,
But I
yeah, they
mean, like,
don't. But I still notice there's been more fights. It's just more aggressive. I don't know. It's weird. I almost sense maybe it's just LA, maybe it's just a general malaise, but there's something off. I don't know.
now is this something off? Been like, is it getting worse? This feeling that things are off.
It's not getting worse. It's just there. I look around and it's kind of like the underlying. It's like you go into a room and there's like a guy that you don't like and he doesn't
Yeah.
like you. And like
Yeah.
you've gotten to like verbal arguments before, and you haven't like you've crossed like you haven't said hi to him, you haven't acknowledged each other yet, but there's that tension, the underlying tension. It's not going to be gone until you address it. Yeah, it's like that. It's just that tension. That's what I feel when I pretty much everywhere I go in LA. It's just there's tension. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just me, but there's something off, and I don't know what the causes are. The feeling I've had that for I've had that feeling for a couple of years now, actually before the pandemic. I remember I was having an argument in I think it was like 2019 with some buddies, some former college friends who were like very anti-gun, and they're like, "Oh well, you don't need guns, just call the cops." And I'm like, "Well, what if there's a riot and the cops can't show up, or the cops just don't show up?" And then lo and behold, like a year later, there were riots. So I don't know. I think it's just going back to the previous thing that our whole society is collapsing, and that we all know it. Shit is going down. It's just a question of exactly when, and maybe it's more cognizant of that because I'm like, hey, we're on a sinking ship. Maybe we should leave. And it's like the Titanic when it's like, oh well, we hit the iceberg, but continue partying, you'll be fine. But you already know what the outcome is, and you already know what's coming, and especially for someone like me with the background I have, it's just the whole anti-fragility thing. That's why I was saying it earlier is you talk to these people who grew up very privileged in LA or New York or whatever, they're just weak. Like you punch them, that if they get punched in the nose, they're just going to collapse.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of the
not even just like
know,
flick them in the earlobe. Just give them a good like
see
little
weakness,
flick like
and I
that.
feel a lot of. I'm sorry.
I said flick them on the earlobe, and they fall down crying like pussies because
Yeah,
they get like benefits for acting like pussies. Like they get like social approval. It's like the most bizarre fucking thing, man. That's the thing that I find just shocking. When I was growing up, if you acted like a pussy, people would say, "Man, you're a pussy." Now you act like a pussy, and it's like, "Oh, poor thing," and you are a victim, and everybody just like caters to you, and I find it so repellent. I mean, and if I were a woman, I'd find it super repellent. I'd become a lesbian for crying out loud. You
Well,
know, I mean,
some women do, but oddly enough, like a lot of the women, especially if you're like toxically masculine, like I am, like I'm unapologetically like that. It's just how I am.
yeah,
Uh, and it's actually been a problem dating. Like if you're just a normal dude who like, yeah, like I like to go shoot guns, I like to go race
sure,
cars and box and drink whiskey. It's like
yeah,
basic man shit, or just like
just
a
being
lot of
regular. Yeah.
yeah, basically like you think it's regular, but you don't necessarily get rewarded for it. But yeah, I mean, people are
No,
just
you
weak,
know.
especially the men. It's like, oh my god, it's like. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, we get into some serious shit as a country, like the United States. Like, there's a war, and like, holy fuck, we're about to be invaded or some shit.
Well, you are
I,
being
I,
invaded from fucking Mexico.
oh, I know we are. I know we are. That's a separate issue. I'm saying, like, we get into like
Like a real
it's
war, you mean? Yeah, like with the
yeah, like a
Russians.
real like. Think about the quality of men that we had going into World War II. Right? Think about the quality of men, and
Yeah.
these are
No,
men who had
I'll
gone
tell
through
you.
hard times.
Like I've the Russian soldiers, they would tear the Americans apart. I mean, it would be like fucking humiliating. I mean, they'd eat them alive. Because these fuckers here. Okay,
You're breaking up.
Sorry, talking about what's going on here in Ukraine. Okay, you got to understand that the Russians over the past roughly 12 years to 10 years, they have been
You're
revamping
breaking up,
their.
Coach.
Oh, hello. Am I broken up? Hello? If you guys can hear me, hit plus 333. Hello?
Uh, Not really. You're breaking up.
Okay, hang on a second.
Oh, the invasion has started.
Yeah, well, maybe the invasion has started. Yeah. Hello, do you guys hear me? Hit me with 333 if okay, so you all can hear it. I think it's you, Robert. I'm
Oh, is
gonna
it me?
I'm gonna have to call it quits, by the way, because
Yeah,
I
yeah, no
gotta
worries.
go.
I appreciate the talk.
No, it was great talking to you, man. I really appreciate it, and tell us more about LA next time around because I'm
Yeah,
really
no worries,
curious.
Coach. Thank you.
Take it easy, guys. I'm gonna call it a halt because I'm like running out of gas, quite frankly. I mean, all of a sudden it's like me that I'm going good until all of a sudden like the needle swings to E and that's it. I'm like I'm done. But I just want to tell you that look, don't get depressed about this shit that's happening. Okay, because it's easy to get depressed. Be realistic, and if you want to be a little bit nihilistic about it and black-pilled, fine, but take it with a sense of humor. Because see, if you get all down in the dumps about it, you're just pulling yourself down, and you have to take it with a sense of humor and realize that in the grand scheme of things, this is all bullshit. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, we're all going to be dead, and nothing that is going on now is going to matter really. Okay, and so just take it easy. Don't sweat it and don't get depressed about it. Okay, and precisely because it's not going to matter that much, take chances and go and do things that you've wanted to do, but you felt that you didn't have what it takes to do it, or you're afraid to do it. Because, see, this is the one life that you get to live. There isn't going to be a replay. Okay. This is it. So just go for it. Whatever it is, if it's some woman, some business, some opportunity of whatever sort, go for it. The worst thing that'll happen is that you fail. And I'll tell you, I failed so many times and I've discovered that it's not a big deal. Falling flat on your face is mildly humiliating, but it doesn't even hurt that much. And before you know it, you've forgotten all about it. And a lot of times you learn so much from your failures. So much. Frankly, you learn more from your failures than your successes. So, whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to do, whatever ambition you have, go for it. Go for it because there's nothing worse than regret. And these times of change and transition, this is the best time to try new stuff because it won't matter. It won't matter if you fail. Okay. I mean, I want you to keep that in mind. So, anyway, it was great talking to you guys. I hope you got something out of this broadcast, and I'll catch you next time. Take it easy.